It's the season of the dinosaur. The world's top paleontologists dig into Canada's prehistoric past to unearth a living world buried in time.
Bingo! We got dinosaurs.
They'll battle heat and floods and the ticking clock as they track the footsteps of dinosaurs. And the most incredible creatures ever to walk the earth will live again on Dino Hunt. This week on Dino Hunt, two teams dig into Alberta, chasing two different horned dinosaurs. In a Grand Prairie riverbed, the Pachyrhino team tries to solve a 73-million-year-old cold case.
Why did a whole bunch of the same species die all at once?
Before the bones get washed away.
It was the worst day of my life.
And in the Badlands, the horned dino team is searching for the skull bones of a brand new species
We've got the frill, we need the face.
that's been dead for 80 million years. Milk River, Alberta. This dry river valley in the Badlands is a hotspot for hunting dinosaurs. And for the next few weeks, it'll be home to the next generation of paleontologists. They're hunting a mystery horned dinosaur. The horned dino team is led by David Evans.
As I walk through the Badlands and see these fossils on the ground, I feel like I'm walking through an ancient landscape. One fossil find can drastically change the way that we view the evolutionary story.
At the age of 26, Evans was hired as head of paleontology by the Royal Ontario Museum, the youngest in the museum's 100-year history.
When I got the job here, it was like a dream come true. To say I was a kid in a candy store is an understatement. I pinch myself. I mean, what were they thinking to hire a 26-year-old? And I'm so happy they made that decision.
The Royal Ontario Museum boasts a century of major discoveries and some of the biggest skeletons in the country.
Some real big names have come through here, and they're big shoes to fill.
And now Evans is about to step up and step into those shoes. He's already onto a discovery that could be a real game changer.
So what we have here are the bones of a brand new species of horned dinosaur. And this is what we were able to excavate in our first year. We realized we had a configuration of these hooks and horns coming off the neck shield that was completely unique. And so we really can't wait to get into the field and try to find more. It's what I love to do. I'm not thinking about a legacy or making my name. I'm just thinking about the dinosaurs.
There's no guarantee Evans will find the skull bones he's looking for embedded in the mudstone, but he's willing to gamble another season to find out.
What we're really hoping for here is that we find the rest of the skull, in particular the horns over the eyes and the horn over the nose, because it's the shape of those bones that will allow us to more precisely place this new species in the family tree of horned dinosaurs.
There's a reason they call it the Badlands. The quarry can become a fiery pit when temperatures climb over 40 degrees centigrade. The horned dino team, mostly grad students, will be working in a harsh terrain under a blistering sun.
When you're actually down the quarry, you really bake, you really feel it.
They'll each need to carry 4 liters of water, or they won't make it through the day.
Heat stroke is probably the biggest danger out here.
David is joined by his partner, Michael Ryan, a Canadian paleontologist working for the Cleveland Museum of Natural History.
It's a very hard day, hot days work ahead of us. The sun is bright, the crew is young and virile, we'll get a lot of fossils.
But it's just one specific set of bones Evans wants to find, the face of a new species.
This kind of represents our gamble. The big question for us now is who finds the first bone?
The first shovel hits pay dirt.
So we've got a little Tyrannosaur tooth here. It's a nice little find for the first few minutes of the day.
But Evans didn't come looking for tyrannosaurs. He's looking for proof of a new species of horned dinosaurs. Evans thinks his mystery dinosaur lived here 80 million years ago. The Badlands was a green, river-fed terrain with plenty of plant life for these 2-ton herbivores to graze on. 45 million years earlier, the first ceratopsians, called protoceratopsians, lived in Asia. Then they migrated to North America across a land bridge. They were the size of large dogs, with frills and neck shields, but no horns.
We know from the pieces we have that this is something really spectacular that's going to tell us a lot about the early evolution of the horned dinosaur family that includes the famous Triceratops. We're on the edge of our seats as paleontologists, because every bone that we find here is going to tell us something new about an animal that we didn't know existed 2 years ago.
A 1,000 kilometers north, another crew of dinosaur hunters makes their way to Grand Prairie, Alberta. It's a boom town, best known for oil and grain. And in nearby Pipestone Creek, an unsolved mystery, 73 million years old. Over millennia, this river has carved out something remarkable. A mass grave containing the bones of thousands of dinosaurs.
This bone bed is one of the richest bone beds anywhere in the world. Making the discoveries in the field is probably the most exciting thing I do, and that's something you never, ever get tired of.
As one of the world's top paleontologists, Dr. Philip J. Currie has made discoveries on every continent. He's the rock star inspiration for the Dino Hunter in Jurassic Park. In 30 years, he's discovered 25 new species and proved that tyrannosaurs hunted in packs.
Grand Prairie is a place where we've worked for more than a dozen years. We've excavated hundreds and hundreds of specimens from there. In fact, thousands of specimens.
But all the bones here come from only one dinosaur species.
Pachyrhinosaur's bone bed is fantastic for us because it tells us so much about the biology of one particular dinosaur, Pachyrhinosaurus.
Pachyrhinosaurus was a ceratopsian species, a relative of the famous Triceratops. These were enormous herbivores that lived in the Canadian North 73 million years ago, reaching up to 6 meters in length and weighing in at 3,000 kilos.
We have up to 300 bones per cubic meter in this bone bed.
I think that's an interesting thing.
This one piece will make 52 layers.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen. All for free. No subscription required.
We're estimating there are thousands and thousands of Pachyrhinosaurus remains in this bone bed.
Currie's Pachyrhino team is mostly made up of grad students, like Scott Persons.
It's really strange that we have a whole bunch of Pachyrhinosaurs in one spot and nothing else. So the mystery, if we think of ourselves as being sort of homicide detectives here, is not just why did a whole bunch of animals die, but why did a whole bunch of animals of the same species die, presumably all at once.
Currie's number 2 is 31-year-old Australian Phil Bell.
Phil was my mentor. I read about him in books when I was a kid, and to come to Canada to work with him, it was a dream come true for me.
Bell has been preparing a Pachyrhinosaurus skull pulled directly from Pipestone Creek.
Up the front end, we've got the beak, which is typical of these animals, these ceratopsian dinosaurs. The eyeball would have been right here. It was about the size of my fist. Moving back, we've got this big sweeping shield that would have protected the back of the skull, and a variety of horns that it would have used for display with other members of its herd, and possibly even to frighten predators.
This animal, like countless thousands of its kind, died swiftly and unexpectedly.
You're looking at a crime scene that happened 75 million years ago. All of the evidence is cold.
2 teams and 2 mysteries. In the Badlands, the Horned Dino team digs for a brand new species of ceratopsian. And in Pipestone Creek, Team Pachyrhino is on a forensic fossil hunt looking for clues why thousands of dinosaurs died in one killing blow. In the badlands of Alberta, the horned dinosaur team is trying to identify a brand new species of dinosaur.
We've got the frill, we need the face.
And in Pipestone Creek, Alberta, Phil Curry's Pachyrhino team is hunting for answers to a 73-million-year-old mystery.
This is a mass death and a mass burial, clearly something that must have happened over a very short time. But what happened?
What wiped out an entire herd of pachyrhinosaurs and turned these forests into a killing field? Curry's team has just weeks to find an answer. And after scraping off 73 million years worth of dirt, grad student Scott Persons uncovers a massive pile of bones.
I started out by finding the limb bone, and so I started to excavate around that, and that led me to the rib that's on top of it, and that led me to the vertebra, which has led me to this next rib. So digging here is like a game of pickup sticks. It's hard to find one bone you can take out without running into another.
We have two skull bones here, which we call squamosals. The squamosal is part of the frill at the back of the skull, and so you have these nice scallops along the edge. That helps us age this animal. We know it's at least a young adult.
Knowing the animal's age gets Curry that much closer to determining the cause of death.
It was what we call a catastrophic death assemblage, because it includes those medium-sized animals, which were the young adults and always the strongest members of the population.
What catastrophic event took down the entire herd, including its strongest members? So many dinosaurs buried in one spot gives them a clue about the herd's behavior.
We're probably looking at hundreds or thousands of animals in this herd. They could not have stayed in one place for very long. These animals had to have been moving.
73 million years ago, these dinosaurs would spend their summers in the Arctic. But as the long nights of winter approached, they'd migrate south to the fertile forests of northern Alberta.
An animal with such short, stocky legs probably wasn't a particularly fast animal, but it got protection out of being in these herds.
Despite their strength in numbers, the pachyrhinosaurs were still vulnerable to the ultimate predator.
So if you're a pachyrhinosaur, you're out there grazing, you're always mindful of a pack of tyrannosaurs.
The second most common thing in this bone bed after Pachyrhinosaurus are tyrannosaur teeth. They ripped apart the carcasses of the Pachyrhinosaurus.
So that is a tyrannosaur tooth. And those teeth were probably shed as a tyrannosaurus came down to those heaps of carcasses and were munching on them.
These tyrannosaurs had left their calling card, and they were ripping up those carcasses pretty good. But it seems highly unlikely that the Tyrannosaurus could have killed that many Pachyrhinosaurs.
How the pachyrhinosaurs actually died is still a mystery. Any bones they uncover will eventually be displayed in a brand new museum named for their famous mentor, Dr. Phil Curry.
I've had my success in part because I just enjoy doing what I do. And for people to recognize that, of course, is a very humbling experience.
While Curry's Pachyrhino team struggles to solve the mystery of the Pipestone Creek bone bed, Phil Bell skims downriver searching for a new site and new fossils to fill his boss's museum.
We're on the Smoky River and we're heading downstream, uncharted territory basically. No paleontologist has been there for the last 20 years or so.
Marine fossils discovered along this riverbank show that this entire region was underwater 80 million years ago. And today, Bell is on the hunt for a deadly Cretaceous-era marine reptile, the mosasaur.
These marine reptiles are 15-metre-long marine predators. Long necks, big sharp teeth. They were essentially the T-Rex of the sea.
Like sharks today, these creatures were perfect prehistoric killing machines.
Inside the jaw, we have not only these outer teeth, but along the palate, they have a separate row of teeth here. That ensured that anything that it put in its mouth stayed there.
The skeleton in Bell's lab is a replica, but for the Curry Museum, Bell wants the real deal.
No one has found a full skeleton yet, so ideally what we'd love to find is a complete skull and skeleton to really give an idea of what these animals were.
Bell wastes no time following his instincts, straight uphill.
So I just lick it to clean it off. Paleontologists eat a lot of rock in the field. This area is quite dangerous. We've got overhanging rock and it's continually sloughing off the slope here.
Phil says he's got something.
Big mollusks, big bivalves. Would have had a good-sized oyster come out of that one. And then right in front of us here, we've got these tubes, which are burrows from invertebrates that were scuttling around on the seafloor at times. So where you find their prey, you should be able to find the predator. This is really great. Even these smallest pieces are informative for us. They tell us that we're in the right rocks, they're the right age, and where you find one, you can probably find others.
Bell didn't find the mosasaur skeleton he was looking for, but the day is still a success. He'll be back. In a sweltering dig site near Milk River, Alberta, the horned dino team is still trying to put a face on their mystery dinosaur. It could be a major discovery for Evans and his paleo partner, Michael Ryan.
Probably within the last 50 years to have a completely associated skeleton of a brand new type of dinosaur, horned dinosaur otherwise, I can't think of another occurrence right now.
Team leader David Evans is hoping he'll uncover a brand new species here. Evans isn't the first paleo to prospect these hills for ceratopsians. Almost a century ago, one of paleontology's early superstars made a name for himself during the great dinosaur rush at the dawn of the 20th century. His name was Charlie Sternberg. In 1937, he discovered 6 horned dinosaurs here. 75 years later, David Evans wants to add another new specimen to the ROM's collection and cement his own name in the history books.
It's going to be, one of the most exciting new dinosaur discoveries to come out of Alberta in many years.
And after 3 days under a roasting sun, the horned dino team has finally unearthed the first bone.
We think perhaps it might actually be just a section of a lower limb. So it's cool because we don't have much of the skeleton yet.
It turns out that our big gamble to remove almost half a hillside was a good one. It's just a huge relief.
It's not the frill or skull they were hoping for, but the bones still size up the mystery dinosaur. It's at least 2 meters tall, much bigger than its dog-sized Asian ancestor. They know that their dinosaur lived 80 million years ago in the late Cretaceous period, roaming these badlands when they were a sprawling green space, grazing the edge of an inland sea. They know their dinosaur is a ceratopsian, a horned dinosaur with a frill, like its cousin, Triceratops. What they don't know is what its face looked like, but they suspect and hope it looks like nothing anyone has ever seen before.
What really keeps us awake is knowing that there's something in the ground within inches of our discovery. We're either going to be validated for our 2 years worth of work, or we're going to come up flat.
As the days tick away, the 2 dino hunting crews keep digging. The horned dino team is still on the hunt for the face of its new species.
Wait.
While the pachyrhinosaur team will face off against the elements as they search for the answers to a prehistoric cold case.
The weather can be very harsh in Alberta.
In Pipestone Creek, the pachyrhinosaur team is chiseling into the quarry walls, searching for evidence of the cause of a mass killing.
Sometimes you get lucky and you can find the evidence that you want.
In Milk River, Alberta, the sun blazes down on the horned dino team as veterans and rookies dig side by side, both hoping to unearth a brand new species of dinosaur.
This is my first time out into the field on a paleontological dig. David was my professor in a course, and I was lucky enough to be able to tag along on this trip.
And anybody with a shovel or a chisel has the same chance at hitting pay dirt.
There's an old joke in paleontology that you're not a real paleontologist until you break something important.
You're good, you're good. That's great. It's not broken at all, so it looks like part of a rib, potentially. Okay, go for it.
The bones are fragile. They may have survived 80 million years underground,
Be very gentle.
but they can still shatter with the twist of a blade.
Perfect. Nice.
There it is.
Perfectly done. Way to go.
Thank you.
Not bad for your first one, eh?
Looks like we have an almost full rib here, so I'm pretty proud of my work.
More and more of this mystery dinosaur is rising out of the ground, but its head is still buried in the sand. Graduate student Nicholas Campione may have found a clue in a color.
The rock is gray, the bone is kind of brown. Because of its shape, kind of flat, has the weird bumps, kind of knobs to it, it may actually be part of the skull.
This appears to have a slight semicircular curve to it. This is one of the elements that forms the eye socket. It doesn't tell us definitively which type of horned dinosaur it is, but it does tell us it's a horned dinosaur.
They know the skull belongs to a ceratopsian, but is it from the particular horned dinosaur they're looking for? The shape of its frill may provide a positive ID.
The frills are an extension of the top of the skull, so they extend back away from the body. Some members of the ceratopsians have the largest known skulls for any land-living animal that's ever lived on the Earth.
The bones of our dinosaur have been disarticulated, jumbled up, broken up, and deposited.
Like prehistoric forensic artists, if they can collect enough skull fragments, they'll be able to piece together a picture of that face.
What our challenge is to put those pieces back together and reconstruct the skull of our new dinosaur.
While Phil Curry tries to crack the Grand Prairie cold case, Phil Bell heads back to a dig site he excavated a year ago.
We were here August last year. Now we're returning to collect the last of the bones that are still in the cliff.
The site is just off a busy nature trail, but not everybody who walks it is a nature lover.
Yeah, there's a spent shotgun shell. So people camp and drink and fire off their guns. It's a bit of a lawless area, really. People have no respect. None of this is safe anymore. So this is a site that we found last year. We only found it because this boulder had actually collapsed off the cliff, and that had exposed part of a skeleton of a hadrosaur, a duck-billed dinosaur.
Hadrosaurs were large duck-billed herbivores that roamed in huge herds. Some adults were 9 meters long, and the largest weighed in at over 5.5 tons. But when Bell came to reopen the site, somebody had beaten him to it.
When we came up this slope, we'd seen that the plaster and burlap jacket that we'd put over the bones to protect them had been torn off and was thrown into the back of the quarry here. All the bones that were exposed, anything that they could get their fingers on, had been literally torn up and shattered and thrown down the hill behind us. It was the worst day of my life. I was close to tears. The amount of work that we'd put in here, and then to see such blatant disregard for the natural world, I just don't understand it.
Bell and his team will try to salvage the rest of the hadrosaur.
Now we need to dig this back out and retrieve the bones that are still inside. Just uncovered the pubis. This is part of the pelvis of this animal. It's actually heading back into the cliff here, so we're going to have to take out some of this to try and get it out safely. Obviously, we don't want to burrow too far under this, because then we're in trouble.
They coat the bones in plaster to protect them on their journey back to the lab.
Can you manage?
I think so. I'm just trying to
Do you want me to put it in your arms, or you got it?
No, I'm just trying to get a good grip.
Yeah.
We've got part of that bone already in the lab that we had to take out with the rest of the skeleton, so we're going to piece it all back together now. This is part of that same animal that was vandalised. That's become a big story around here, so I think people are going to be quite eager to see it.
Back in Pipestone Creek, the Pachyrhinosaur team has to hold off their hunt. There may be a storm headed for the dig site.
Our big problem right now is the weather system's pretty unstable, and we really need some kind of protection over the site. Otherwise, every time it rains, we have to stop work.
And what's the next step, boss?
We'll put a tarp over top of the whole system, and then we'll have a tarp extending out over the quarry so that we can work when it's raining.
Now Curry needs to protect the site, or he risks losing any clues to what killed a whole herd of Pachyrhinosaurs 73 million years ago.
Having all that water there with the mud that it carries in, you can refill in a quarry very quickly, and then of course we have to dig it out again.
Mother Nature is on the move, and Phil has no idea how much of his site will be there in the morning. And in Milk River, the Horned Dino team sees the face of its mystery species rise from the earth for the first time in 80 million years.
Now we're going to see just how much of it is here.
In the Alberta Badlands, the Horned Dino team gets their first glimpse of an unknown species.
We hope to find more of the skull, but there's always the chance that we'll fail.
But in Grand Prairie, Alberta, heavy rains have pelted the region, causing major flooding. In the Pipestone Creek bone bed, the Pachyrhinosaur team's dig is in jeopardy. The rains triggered a mudslide that totaled the dig site and almost buried the crew.
I was in the quarry with everybody else when this wall was caving in on top of us. So at that point, we basically all ran out of the quarry. In 2 seconds, filled back in a week's worth of work.
I would guess it was something like 10 tons of rock slid into the quarry once again and now has to be moved. It's very wet, very slippery, and very dangerous. All you need is an inclination of ½ a degree from horizontal, and you're going to go down.
They've only got 4 more days to work the quarry, so this is a major setback for Curry.
We would normally be excavating bones right now, and we're not excavating bones right now, we're still digging.
Before they can get back to digging up bones, they've got to dig themselves out. In Milk River, the quarry sizzles like a skillet in the burning sun. David Evans and his Horned Dino team are searching for the bones of what might be a new species of dinosaur.
Even in Canada, the heat can be stifling. It's not unusual to have 40 to 45 degrees Celsius days.
But they can take the heat because a picture of their mystery dino is finally coming into focus.
This is part of the neck shield, part of the skull of this new horned dinosaur. And what we're looking at is paired bones that form the sides of the frill. And as we go up into the back part of the frill, these small bumps actually develop into these huge hooks that project forward over the frill, unlike anything we've seen before.
But what was the function of the ceratopsian frill? There are 2 schools of thought.
Horned dinosaurs are unique in having these large, weird ornamentations coming off the back of their skull. Perhaps those large frills were for protection. You can imagine a triceratops being attacked by Tyrannosaurus rex, that frill would have protected the back of its neck.
It turns out not all ceratopsians could have used their frills for defense. They were too thin to offer much protection. So, what were they for?
We're thinking now that the large frills and the ornamentations are actually used for recognition between species.
In the late Cretaceous period, these forests were overrun with dinosaurs. And it wasn't always easy to find your species or a mate. So maybe frills evolved just to be frills. At the dig, the race is on to find more key pieces of the skull.
So far, so good, but we're really hoping to get those horns.
In Pipestone Creek, Phil Curry's Pachyrhinosaur team struggles to get the dig site out from under. Flooding has caused a massive mudslide, dumping 10 tons of rock back in the quarry, burying any clues to what killed an entire herd of pachyrhinosaurs.
Once you get down to the last few days, then you're wishing you had a lot more time.
In a race to make up for lost time, the team hammers away at the earth, desperate to bring up more of the pachyrhinosaur bones.
The bones here could belong to one animal or could belong to 11 animals or any number in between.
Curry knows these horned-faced herbivores moved in huge migratory herds. But what lethal force of nature trapped thousands of dinosaurs, leaving them with no hope of survival? Seasons of sifting through the bone bed allow Curry to rule out two possibilities.
We have, for example, associated with the Pachyrhinosaurus bone bed, volcanic ashes. And that suggests, well, maybe the volcanoes of that time produced so much ash that they smothered these animals, so they died in that way. However, we don't have an awful lot of ash in the bone bed itself, so this seems unlikely. Forest fires are another possibility. We know they happened. We do find charcoal in a lot of our bone beds, but not in this particular bone bed. This is the reason you keep going back to a bone bed year after year, because you may not have the answer. It's challenging us to try and come up with an answer for why so many animals are together.
Curry and the rest of the Pachyrhinosaur team has just 2 days to find the missing evidence in their Cretaceous cold case. And in Milk River, David Evans and the Horn Dino team need just one more fossil to identify their mystery dinosaur.
With any luck, we'll pull the horns out of here.
In the Alberta Badlands, David Evans and the Horn Dino team are still looking for the horns of the unknown dinosaur.
It's going to be, one of the most exciting new dinosaur discoveries to come out of Alberta in many years.
The Pipestone Creek dig has been a tough, dirty job. The Pachyrhinosaur team still hasn't solved the mystery of what dropped a herd of dinosaurs in their tracks on this very spot. After days of backbreaking work, Curry's crew puts down their tools to support their mentor at a fundraiser for his museum.
It's more a formal kind of black tie event, so definitely dressed up really, really nice. Well, as nice as we can be with, coming fresh out of the field.
For Curry, fundraisers are just another way to finance his digs. And the Dino Ball is a chance to spread the word and raise some cash for the museum.
Ready as I'll ever be, I guess.
And for his students, it's a chance to get cleaned up and hit the town.
This is one of the farm girls' dresses. It's from Tiffany's.
All for the job.
Once the Dino Ball's in full swing, everybody gets to relax and enjoy the party. The next morning, no stranger to swinging a shovel, Dr. Curry breaks ground on the museum that will bear his name.
Our namesake, Dr. Philip J. Curry.
The reality is that this area is incredibly rich in dinosaurs. You have forests covering dinosaurs, so it's a little harder to find, but still, if you know what to look for, you're going to find them.
But Curry still hasn't found the answer to what killed a herd of late Cretaceous dinosaurs, and time is running out. Like a detective, he needs proof, and he has just 1 day left to find it. Back in Milk River, David Evans' Horn Dinosaur team is pushing to complete the composite sketch of their dino's face and find out if they really have discovered a brand new species.
Lots of skull bones in this area. So with any luck, we'll pull the horns out of here.
The size and placement of the horns will help identify their mystery ceratopsian.
We've already uncovered vertebrae, ribs, parts of the skull, parts of the limbs.
We know way more about this dinosaur now than maybe we even had hoped. But we're still looking for the horns to put a face to our new horned dinosaur.
No horns, no frill, no new species for Evans and his crew. And in Pipestone Creek, the storm that almost washed them out might just give Curry the clue he needs.
Hey, maybe that's actually what happened in our dinosaur quarry.
In Milk River, Alberta, David Evans and the Horned Dino crew are in the final stretch, hoping to uncover the face of a brand new species.
Just a matter of time, really, until we get all the pieces.
But what will this dino look like? In Pipestone Creek, Alberta, it's the final day of digging for Phil Curry's Pachyrhinosaur team. What lethal force of nature killed thousands of Pachyrhinosaurs right here 73 million years ago?
With so many bones in one place, it clearly representing a place where these animals died almost instantaneously. Any animal that moves in groups will encounter situations where they die together en masse. And we can look at modern environments and modern animals, and we can see that this is the kind of thing that happens very frequently. A very good example of that was in northern Quebec in 1985, where over 10,000 animals died in a very, very short time. I mean, we're talking hours, essentially. As best as I can tell, the animals in the Pachyrhinosaurus bone beds probably drowned, because it's the best explanation, it's the simplest explanation.
As the massive herd searches for a new food source, they're caught in a storm. Desperate to escape the rising waters, they try crossing a powerful rushing river.
Maybe these animals were in a system where the waters became too high for them. They panicked, they started pushing each other underwater.
The herd of 4-ton dinosaurs are suddenly out of their depth, out of control in the churning water. Unable to swim, unable to breathe.
The animals in the Pachyrhinosaurus bone bed are associated with moving water. The moving water buried them.
When the water receded, it exposed thousands of carcasses. The bodies were scavenged by tyrannosaurs. Then they lay buried by the sands of time for 73 million years. It may seem incredible that a single flood could wipe out a herd of 1,000 healthy animals. But after their own brush with nature, Curry's crew knows only too well how powerful and deadly a flood can be. Mudslides and rain cut short this year's dig. With so many bones in the ground, the team has only scratched the surface. And they know they'll be back in the future to dig deeper in the past. A 1,000 kilometers away, Evans and the Horned Dinosaur team plaster the bones they've pulled from the Badlands.
We got critical pieces of the frill. We also got a piece of the nose horn. We actually even got one of the horns from over top of the eyes, which was one of the prizes that we were looking for. So this here is probably the most important fossil that we collected all season. This is the center point of the skull, the midline. And then on this side of the midline, you can see there's a spike or hook coming off forward. And you can see it even better on the other side. So you've got the two hooks coming off, one either side. They're about the size of your hand. I would not be surprised at all if this piece right here actually attached to the other sections of frill that we have in the lab and actually gave us a complete picture of a single individual frill for this new species.
If the frill pieces match, David Evans will have discovered a brand new species of ceratopsian dinosaur. It will be months before David can unpack his prizes at the lab in the Royal Ontario Museum. Here, the bones of the unknown dinosaur are pulled from their protective plaster jackets.
The bone that Ian is preparing is the back middle part of the frill. And it's this bone that allows us to say for sure that this is a brand new type of dinosaur.
It's a delicate operation. One slip could shatter months of work. But in the end, the prized piece of frill surfaces.
What's particularly exciting is that on either side, you've got well-developed hook-like ornamentation.
If this frill piece matches with the specimens Evans collected on his last dig, it'll reveal the first traces of a face, the face of a new species.
That is pretty amazing. Yeah, this clinches it. With the pieces that we found last year, we're in a position where we can actually start to put together those pieces into a very good idea of what our dinosaur looked like. I've worked with my artist to give a general view of what this new dinosaur would look like. Do you want to see it? Well, here it is. This is the first reconstruction of the south side ceratopsian. It doesn't have a name yet, but it has these wicked drooping hooks all around the back part of the frill. It has quite long horns over the eyes. Looks like our dinosaur has quite a big nose horn, and it's a little bit unexpected. With this bone and this complete picture of the ornamentation on the frill of this early horned dinosaur, it just confirms that we have a brand new animal to add to the dinosaur dictionary. Every species that we find tells us something new about the diversity of past life on this planet. It's going to be a fun challenge to describe and name this particular animal.
The unnamed new dinosaur will go on display right here at the museum.
When I design an exhibit, I try to take myself back in time to when I was 5 or 6. Huge dinosaur lover. What would blow me away? To be able to see a new species so quickly after it was unearthed, that would make an impression on a young, budding paleontologist.
This is why David Evans became a dinosaur hunter, for the rush of a new discovery, to witness a prehistoric creature come to life before your eyes. On the next Dino Hunt, in the badlands of Alberta, a young paleontologist is looking for the last piece of a mythic puzzle.
It wasn't collected with a head or a tail club. I'd be happy to just find the hole where it had been collected from, because you never know what you're going to find.
If they can solve a 100-year-old mystery, they might find the missing bones from a 74-million-year-old dinosaur. And in a secret BC location.
Stop filming.
A husband and wife team have uncovered the province's first complete dinosaur, lying right where it died.
There's no roads into the site, so we have to take it out by air.
They can get it out of the ground, but can they get it in the air?
We'll be worried. We'll be worried, we'll be concerned.
It's the season of the dinosaur. The world's top paleontologists dig into Canada's prehistoric past to unearth a living world buried in time.
Bingo! We got dinosaurs.
They'll battle heat and floods and the ticking clock as they track the footsteps of dinosaurs. And the most incredible creatures ever to walk the earth will live again. On Dino Hunt. This week on Dino Hunt. A new generation of dino hunters is searching for a long-lost quarry.
We're looking for an individual animal called ankylosaurs, the armored dinosaur.
If the ankylosaur team can solve a 100-year-old mystery,
something large came out of here.
They might find missing bones from a 77-million-year-old dinosaur. And in a secret BC location,
Stop filming.
a husband and wife team have uncovered the province's first complete dinosaur, lying just where it died.
There's no roads into the site, so we have to take it out by air.
The hadrosaur team can get it out of the ground, but can they get it in the air?
We'll be worried, we'll be concerned.
The spring thaw comes late in Alberta. It's already deep into May when a team of young scientists from the University of Alberta lands at Dinosaur Provincial Park. Dino hunting season has begun. The students are led by renowned Canadian paleontologist Dr. Philip J. Curry.
You get close to the badlands, coming over the crests, and you suddenly see them spread out below you, and you know there's all these bones there. The excitement is pretty intense.
The world-famous fossil hunter has spent his career in the field and dig sites from Montana to Mongolia, linking feathered dinosaurs to modern-day birds and proving that T-Rex hunted in packs. Today, Curry's back digging on home turf.
The reason I've come to Dinosaur Park so often over the years is simply because it's the best place in the world.
And for good reason. 75 million years ago, this was lush forest, a steamy, fertile home to dozens of species of plant-eating dinosaurs, who in turn served as dinner for dozens of meat-eating dinosaurs.
It looks pretty nice down here, though.
It does.
So this is upside down, right?
For Curry, this trip is a chance to mentor the next generation of dino hunters.
I've always felt that if I can do something that's rewarding to them, then I've accomplished something.
Their funding buys these grad students only 3 weeks of digging, so every day counts. PhD student Scott Persons is looking for meat eaters.
Last year, I found on one day a total of 6 tyrannosaur teeth. I'm looking to try to best that record this year.
It's like when you're in grade school and you play that parachute game.
Doctoral student Victoria Arbour has had a passion for paleontology since she was a teenager.
This is my 7th year here. I've always liked dinosaurs ever since I was really young, so being able to collect in Dinosaur Provincial Park is like, you know, the holy grail of dinosaurs in Canada.
A century ago, the first fossils were discovered lodged in the craggy moonscape of the Badlands. By 1910, adventurer and fossil hunter Barnum Brown grabbed headlines with a Triceratops skeleton and the world's first T-Rex. A century later, this new generation of explorers is determined to make discoveries of their own.
This is just a fragment of bone, but there's the outer surface and the inner side, which is spongy. Based on the inside, it's probably from one of the plant-eating dinosaurs.
But Victoria's looking for a very specific plant eater.
I like ankylosaurs, the armored dinosaurs, because they're the ugliest dinosaurs, and I feel like they don't necessarily always have their day in the sun.
They might not be pretty, but they were tough. Ankylosaurs were the tanks of the dinosaur world. Their bodies were covered in bony plates for protection, like crocodiles or armadillos. 77 million years later, Victoria is on a mission to find one particular ankylosaur. The missing pieces of a skeleton first found in the Badlands 100 years ago.
So we're looking for an individual animal called NHMUK R5161, and that was collected almost 100 years ago by someone named William Cutler. It has all of its armor still in place on its body, and there's even skin impressions, but it wasn't collected with a head or a tail club.
Cutler was an amateur bone collector who had a habit of misplacing fossils and neglecting to document his dig sites.
It would be really cool if we could relocate the head or the tail club, but I'd be happy to just find the hole where it had been collected from.
Victoria's here to finish Cutler's work, but finding Cutler's cave won't be easy.
Yeah, I stuck my hand on a cactus. Ooh. I do not have the skills of a mountain goat. I wish that I had a mountain goat gene.
"1,000 kilometers northwest, there's a different dino hunt underway. Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia. Population, 3,300. There isn't much here but creeks, coal, and uncharted forest. But 15 years ago, locals stumbled on signs of dinosaurs here. They called in the experts.
Bump it.
And they never left. Richard McRae and his paleo partner wife Lisa Buckley made a career walking in the footsteps of dinosaurs. They spend every summer searching these mountains for dino tracks.
If you're looking for treasure, around every bend, you never know what you might find.
So I had grown up always wanting to be a paleontologist. So to actually hear that there was dinosaur remains in British Columbia, that was pretty exciting.
Footprints.
Footprint. Big footprint. We have the back of the foot here, and then side toe, middle toe, and other side. Just because the digits are pretty rounded at the tips, it could be a large ornithopod.
Ornithopods were three-toed plant eaters, the cows of the dinosaur age. They left deep footprints, which sealed in the hardened mud and petrified over time. After 10 years in these hills, Rich and Lisa have found enough tracks and fossils to fill a warehouse. So they commandeered an abandoned building and filled it with dinosaur bones.
Well, what we are walking through right now is a decommissioned elementary school.
Their museum has been filling up with small dinosaur fossils found in the area.
This is a rare find. It's one of the Tyrannosaur tracks, one of the very few worldwide.
None of the full skeletons are from British Columbia. But if they're lucky, that's about to change. Hidden deep in the woods outside Tumbler Ridge, Rich and Lisa have uncovered the first complete dinosaur ever seen in British Columbia. It's taken them 5 years to get this far, and now it's ready to come out of the ground. It's a 74-million-year-old hadrosaur, a plant eater spanning 9 meters from snout to tail and weighing in at 5.6 tons.
On the floor here, we have a fairly large section of the proximal tail, part of the tail. This specimen weighs about 700 to 800 kilograms.
Fossils aren't just buried bones. Once a dinosaur is covered in sand, minerals seep into its skeleton, making it as hard and as heavy as rock.
Which is why the main hadrosaur, we're looking at something that weighs 2,000 to 3,000 kilograms, and there's no roads into the site, so we have to take it out by air. So we need a fairly substantial helicopter. What we're bringing back is British Columbia's first complete dinosaur.
It's a very short flight that it needs to make, but that is going to be the most hair-raising thing that I've ever done out here, and I've hung off of ropes on vertical surfaces looking at tracks. We'll be worried. We'll be worried, we'll be concerned. There'll be some nail chewing, and if everybody knows what they're doing, it will land in one piece and not in many pieces.
Will they be able to airlift the hadrosaur team's 74-million-year-old prize safely? Or will their hopes for a homegrown dinosaur exhibit shatter on impact? And in the Badlands, the ankylosaur team might just have a picture of where to find Cutler's Cave.
We're on the right track.
Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia, the hadrosaur team is ready to dig out a dinosaur that's been hibernating all winter.
I'll always be worried about the jacket surviving lift.
And in the Badlands of Dinosaur Park, the ankylosaur team prospects the rocks in search of fossils. But Victoria Arbor only has eyes for one dinosaur.
I like ankylosaurs because they have this really cool tail that's been modified into a club or like a battle axe.
A swing of its club tail could snap a bone or shatter a skull with deadly force. And if the legends are true, one might be waiting for her on the other side of this river. The mystery they're looking to uncover is only a century old. Barely a blip in the timeline for a paleontologist. In the early 20th century, American paleontologists flocked to this area to plunder dinosaur bones by the trainload. That didn't sit well with Canadians, so Ottawa hired its own dino hunter, Charles Hazelius Sternberg, who had decades of experience collecting fossils in the American West. Sternberg and his 3 sons came to Alberta to compete with the American fossil hunter Barnum Brown and trigger what is now remembered as the Canadian Dinosaur Rush. They would go to any lengths to stake a claim to the biggest find.
There's no question that Brown and the Sternbergs had a good time when they went out because the material had been eroding for hundreds or thousands of years, and much of it was on the surface.
Thanks to the Sternbergs, many of Alberta's dinosaur fossils stayed in Canada and can still be seen in Toronto's Royal Ontario Museum. The Dino Rush attracted plenty of amateurs who hoped to find their fortune in the bones. One was William E. Cutler, who uncovered a complete ankylosaur skeleton in a nearby cave. But soon after the discovery, the prized tailbone and skull went mysteriously missing, along with the coordinates for the dig site.
That specimen is on display in London, England right now. We'd love to find the rest of it.
To help Victoria find it, Curry has called in some local talent named Darren Tanky, aka the Dino Detective.
Darren is like the go-to person for finding these old quarries in dinosaur parks. If anyone knows where the quarry is, it will be Darren.
He looks for everything, every little bit of evidence you can possibly imagine. Sometimes it's just a mark in the rock. Sometimes it's a newspaper that's buried just outside the quarry.
Tanky, from the local Royal Tyrrell Museum of Paleontology, has made a career finding abandoned dig sites and tracking down missing dinosaur bones.
So I've been trying to find this site for quite a long time, but all we've had is a very poor photocopy of an old photograph. But recently we were able to find a original copy of the magazine, so there's a better picture to work from now.
The photograph shows the fossil being lowered from the quarry, which reveals a clue about the surrounding landscape.
So we're looking for basically a place where you've got a vertical cliff face with a sharp undercut forming a shadow.
Exactly where the picture of Cutler's cave was taken is still murky.
Cutler was an amateur collector who came to Canada in 1898 and decided around 1912 to become a dinosaur collector.
Cutler became the only person in human history to be attacked by an ankylosaur.
While he was excavating, a thing fell on him, severely injuring his upper body. Other people collected the rest of the specimen for him, but they didn't really record where it came from.
The Sternbergs created a map documenting all the dig sites of the day, and it might guide the team to Cutler's cave.
Okay, so we're camped here. We're gonna cross the river, go to this flat here where Cutler had his camp. So we're just gonna be going up that valley up there.
But the Badlands have been pounded by rain and wind for over a century since that photo was taken. Even an expert like Tanky can't be certain Cutler's cave survived. Meanwhile, a few kilometers away, Scott Persons may have just pulled a tooth.
Oh!
Out of the ground.
All right. So that is a tyrannosaur tooth. This tooth belongs right in the front of the Tyrannosaur's mouth, so it would use it to stab in and then sort of cookie cutter out a great big chunk of flesh.
There's a reason the Tyrannosaurs held the top spot in the food chain. With their strength, speed, and heightened senses, these fierce bipeds were pure predator. Scott has found his first Tyrannosaur fossil of the season, so he's off to a good start. Meanwhile, in Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia, husband and wife paleo team Rich McRae and Lisa Buckley have discovered an articulated hadrosaur. They're worried their dig site will be destroyed before they can get their specimen out.
We do feel paranoid, but it's been justified with vandalisms at other sites.
So to keep British Columbia's first complete dinosaur skeleton safe, they're keeping its location secret. The couple is taking no chances. Rich and his assistant Dustin will drive equipment down to the dig site. Lisa will lead the film crew to the dig site by way of a secret trail.
All right, we're off, so I'll get you guys to stop filming.
While the hadrosaur team fades to black, the ankylosaur team goes face-to-face with a 100-year-old dino hunter.
Cutler was sitting right there.
In Alberta's Dinosaur Provincial Park, the ankylosaur team is searching for a 100-year-old dig site that could be hiding 77-million-year-old bones.
We're looking for an individual animal called NHMUK R5161.
And In an undisclosed BC location, a 74-million-year-old hadrosaur skeleton waits to be airlifted to safety. The hadrosaur team who discovered it is doing their best to protect the site from vandals. So our camera crew has been asked to travel blind and not to film the route to the dig site.
All right, well, we're in the middle of nowhere now, and I bet that you guys have no idea where you are right now, so we can start filming. Oh! Oh!
Shouting seems like an odd way to keep a place under wraps, but this security measure isn't to keep fossils safe, it's to keep people safe.
We have to be careful. Bears are using this trail. Oh! Oh! The call I just made right there is our bear alarm system to let the bears know that we're coming. Right down here, we have bear scat. Scat is poo. Scat is definitely poo. Feces, dookie. Oh!
Rich lands at the site for the first time in 6 months.
This is the site, and we're very excited to get back at it, hoping to get the main dinosaur out this year. This is it right here, this hump.
The massive skeleton has been buried to keep it hidden from vandals.
There's a lot of them.
Rich and the team need to dig it out to get it ready for the airlift. But they're no strangers to moving dirt.
Over the past 5 years, we've removed probably about 300 plus cubic meters of rock by hand.
It's starting to be free.
With the dirt cleared, it's time to see how their dinosaur slept through the winter.
Weathered very well, so I'm not worried about the jacket surviving the lift. Well, yeah, I'll always be worried about the jacket surviving the lift, but it is as good as we left it last summer.
Under the plaster jacket is a complete fossilized dinosaur, lying in the same position as when it took its last breath.
And you can see the writing here shows where we have identified different parts of the bones in the animal. So there's chevrons, these are those spines that are on the underside of the tail. This area here, the neural spines, these were the first set of articulated vertebrae that we found.
The dinosaur's spine is arched backwards, as though it died violently and in great pain.
The original thought back in the early days of interpreting fossils was those were the death throes of the animal. But as more work has been done, we have found out that as an animal's body decays and falls apart, the tendons and the ligaments, they dry out. It's going to pull the entire body into this arched neck, arched tail pose.
After lying underground for 74 million years, their hadrosaur is ready for its new home. But the question remains, will their dinosaur fly? In the Alberta Badlands, the Ankylosaur team has learned that Cutler's Cave, the dig site that went missing a century ago, might be right across the river from their camp. The search party is led by Dino Detective Darren Tankey, and he may be onto something.
So now we're entering Cutler's camp from 1914, and his tent was just situated over that area right there.
Very cool.
Well, if you just stand right here, you can see that these hills here
Oh, yeah.
are those hills there.
Cool.
And this hill here with the rocks on top and spilling down the slope is that one right there, yeah.
That's great.
So
Very cool.
Cutler was sitting right there almost 100 years ago.
Oh, great.
Now that they've found the camp, Tankey and the Ankylosaur team split up, searching for clues that might lead them to Cutler's Cave.
You can even see here, there's some wire
Cool.
where his tent was. It's just an extra way of making sure the crate didn't open during shipment on the railroad. Almost 100 years old. Well, I think we're off to a good start today. We've actually matched the 1914 Cutler camp photograph with the actual site. He didn't have a truck or a car, so he had to camp near quarry. We're on the right track.
Deeper in the Badlands, Scott Persons is tracking tyrannosaurs, but stumbles on something a little less terrifying.
So this is the end of a limb bone from turtle. These particular turtles like to hang out in water. These are not dry land tortoises. So again, that tells us that we're dealing with a wet, warm environment.
75 million years ago, Alberta was beachfront property, on the shores of a warm inland sea that cut deep into North America. It was hot and swampy and dense with vegetation for the herbivores to eat, and dense with herbivores for the carnivores to eat.
So this is a radius from a hadrosaur or a duck-billed dinosaur, and we can be certain of that from its overall shape. This is a pretty big forearm. You can see it's much larger than mine. So this is an animal probably exceeding 30 feet from the tip of its ducky snout to the end of its long tail.
Scott's fossil is from a hadrosaur, a duck-billed dinosaur. This was the biggest plant eater in Alberta.
But what makes it really, really cool, if you get down low, you can see over here there are some tiny scratch marks on the surface of the bone. And finally, this one really, really deep gouge. Those are tooth marks. Only animal in the dinosaur park ecosystem that can leave a deep gouge like that on a bone is a kind of tyrannosaur.
A tyrannosaur called Gorgosaurus, who hunted in this area 75 million years ago. At 9 meters long, it could sprint up to 40 kilometers per hour. The very first one was found in 1913 by Canada's first paleontologists, the Sternbergs, right here in Dinosaur Provincial Park. Scott has found a bone worth taking back to the camp, but to get it out of the ground, he's got to use a delicate touch, or he'll shatter his prize. Across the river, Darren Tanky and the Ankylosaur team are zeroing in on the mystery quarry.
We are now roughly here.
A map of the area was made by the Sternbergs over 60 years ago. It's led Tanky to what he thinks is Cutler's Cave, which might contain the missing Ankylosaur skull and tail.
We're having some conflicting GPS issues. The arrows are flipping around back and forth.
The problem is, the 100-year-old map and the crew's GPS can't agree on directions.
We cannot be 100% sure that we've found the site. There are no photographs to tell us that this is the site. This is exactly where we want to be.
If Tanky's map is right, it'll lead the Ankylosaur team to a quarry that hasn't been seen for 100 years. And in BC, the Hadrosaur team hopes they can get their heavyweight dino off the ground without broken bones.
I've never lifted a dinosaur, so that's another one for the books.
In a secret British Columbia dig site, the Hadrosaur team is waiting for a lift. They're hoping the helicopter company will be able to get their complete skeleton out of the ground and into the air.
We need a fairly substantial helicopter.
And in the Alberta Badlands, Victoria Arbor and the Ankylosaur team are willing to risk hostile terrain if it leads them to a lost site that was last seen a century ago. If they find the legendary Cutler's Cave, they could recover the missing skull and tailbone of a rare Ankylosaur. It went missing before it was shipped out to London about a century ago.
William Cutler did keep some field notes, and so hopefully we'll be able to find the quarry.
All they have to go on is a faded photograph, showing what might be the skeleton being lifted out of the quarry.
You can see they're inclined like this.
Yeah. Something large came out of here. Something quite large, but what? We found bits of burlap, bits of plaster, bits of wood, so we know something was taken out of here.
The rock looks generally like the rock around the specimen, which is on display in London.
I just can't see anyone going through all of the effort to dig something out of that horrendous spot and it not be something incredibly significant.
But do you think, is this big enough, or?
Well, I've got Cutler's article where he talks about how big the block was.
Yeah.
In feet. See, I got 10 feet. So that's where I thought maybe the tail was
And
in there.
that's this one, right? There's nothing that looks like vertebrae in cross-section.
There's no bone at all.
Nothing.
No. No.
I feel like it needs to be a somewhat bigger quarry because the specimen is quite huge.
It's disappointing, but Darren's hunch was wrong. The quarry is too small to have been Cutler's Cave.
I know, it's a real conundrum for me. I'm really troubled by what's going on here right now.
It's too bad because Darren was pretty confident about this one, so.
So that's kind of a bit of a nail in the coffin. I think this might be an example of a quarry that's just completely and utterly lost for all time. It's just eroded away and it's gone.
Until we find the skull or some other evidence that this is definitely the quarry, we're going to keep looking because I think that the mystery has not been solved yet.
Across the Red Deer River, Scott Persons is having a better afternoon. The hadrosaur bone with the tyrannosaur bite marks is almost ready to dig up.
So the function of the paper towels is just to protect the bone.
The plaster protects the fragile fossils, but even after they're coated, there's always a chance they'll break apart.
This is always the most dangerous part of pulling a fossil out. And if all goes well, the jacket will hold. Just tends to be unpredictable. So cross your fingers. Okay. Beautiful. All right. All right. Time to pack up and go have a steak dinner.
In Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia, hadrosaur team Rich McRae and Lisa Buckley are waiting for an expert opinion. Can a 4,000-kilo hadrosaur skeleton be airlifted to safety?
Any more strength we can put in it won't hurt.
Right now, there's no guarantee. As the lift team ponders their payload, they survey the area for the oncoming chopper.
When the helicopter comes in, it's the same as a hurricane, 100-mile-an-hour winds. If some of those winds could push those trees over fairly easy, you might not see them. They'll come down real fast. You can break your neck. I'm more or less doing this for myself, not for Dinosaur. Yeah. He's already dead.
After all this waiting, there's still plenty to worry about. This is the first complete dinosaur skeleton ever found in British Columbia. And even if it clears the tree line, it could still break apart mid-flight under the pressure of its own weight.
I think if we got one here, another one here, right?
It'll be a very high-risk time where it's not on the ground and not stable. So if something were to happen to it, you can't help but feel attached to it.
And I'll put a net over top of this just so it doesn't spin. The net will break the wind.
The dinosaur will be airborne for 1 harrowing kilometer, then lowered gently onto a flatbed truck. The helicopter can handle a payload of 5,000 kilograms. McRae figures the fossil weighs about 4,400, a little more than a fully grown elephant. But that's just an educated guess.
Well, I've got lots of experience, you know. I've never lifted a dinosaur, so that's another one for the books, right?
The team rigs a cradle to lift the hadrosaur out of the gully and into the limelight as the star attraction at their Tumbler Ridge Museum. There is a whole lot riding on this going right. It's a new day in Dinosaur Provincial Park. Victoria may not have found Cutler's Cave or her pet ankylosaur, but if you just keep digging, the Badlands might offer up a consolation prize.
When we're in the field, it's very seldom that we're going to find exactly what we're working on or exactly what we're hoping to find.
An hour later, persistence pays off.
What you got, Victoria?
Oh, it looks like we've got some sort of long bone going into the ground here. Yeah. We're just gonna keep picking along and see what we can get. This rock is really soft around it, so it's not too hard to excavate around.
All right.
It's nice to find a nice complete bone. I'm always looking for ankylosaurs, but really I'm happy just to find anything that's cool, so I was really happy about that.
The dark clouds gathering over the Badlands aren't going to dampen Victoria's spirits. She's onto something big.
No, it's huge.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it looks pretty good though.
Looks great.
I'm pretty happy. We think it's probably the shin bone or tibia of a meat-eating dinosaur called Gorgosaurus, who's like a smaller relative of Tyrannosaurus rex, which everybody knows and loves.
It's the same kind of dinosaur that left the tooth Scott found and that chewed into the hadrosaur bone. 74 million years ago, Gorgosaurus prowled these swamps in search of slower-moving plant eaters. And hadrosaur was definitely on the menu. While unlikely, is it possible that they hold in their hands traces of this actual Gorgosaur? And this hadrosaur? Predator and prey? Victoria's made a great find, but now she's in a race with Mother Nature.
Basically, we have about half an hour. All of these rills you see fill up with water, and we have big waterfalls, and all of these channels become completely full of water. Then it becomes impossible to move.
It's a little bit frustrating. Luckily, though, we had Victoria's great find. Would have been nice to have gotten that bone trenched out a little bit more, maybe put up a little bit more rain safety on it.
Victoria's new fossil has been exposed to the elements for the first time in millions of years. Whether it will be there tomorrow is anyone's guess. In BC, a copter's coming to pick up a dinosaur. But if the hadrosaur team guessed its weight wrong, it's not going to make it home.
There's been times where these things have been cut loose 200 feet above the ground. Nothing survived.
In Tumbler Ridge, BC, a chopper is on the way.
Same as a hurricane, 100-mile-an-hour winds.
If they can pull it off, the first full dinosaur skeleton ever found here will be heading to its new home. And in Alberta, Dinosaur Park is underwater. Victoria Arbor found a prize fossil, but right now the dig is called on account of rain. And if it continues, days worth of hard work could simply drift away.
Well, today is a rain day, whether you like it or not. Because the badlands become so slippery, it's impossible to go out there. Right now, we just have to sit and wait.
But Victoria has found a fun way to pass the time, Dino Hunter style.
Well, I brought my sketchbook along, and the game is that you have to draw a dinosaur or whatever. And I like to see what everybody can draw in camp. Okay. But there he is.
As the rain continues to fall, at least the crew can stay warm and well fed.
It's frustrating because I think all of us want to get out there and go prospecting, but we just can't when it's this wet and muddy.
For now, the team has no choice but to hunker down and hope that the weather clears. In Tumbler Ridge, it's D-Day, Dinosaur Day. A helicopter is on its way to airlift British Columbia's first articulated dinosaur skeleton.
I always go ahead and assess all the landing spots.
The hadrosaur team, Buckley and McRae, have been waiting 5 years for this day, and they are worried sick, literally.
I've been better. Little bug, just a flesh wound. Rich has been better.
Feeling ill, sore throat, dehydrated, no sleep, hadn't eaten. It was just a recipe for disaster.
This is Andy and this is Kirk. We're pilots, so they'll be...
Hi there. I suppose the risks are we could have an engine failure and we might have to drop the load. I don't even really want to talk about it because it's not going to happen. But it's obviously it's not like a boulder. I assume it's a little more delicate than a lot more delicate. Yeah. All right.
With the chopper ready, Lisa and Rich rush back to the dig site.
hear it coming.
Good.
Yeah,
Moment of
it's
truth.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see this guy airborne.
Yeah, 74 million years it hasn't budged, so it's gonna have quite a shift today.
The big question now is, did they get the weight right? If the fossil's heavier than 5,000 kilograms, the airlift could end in disaster.
There's been times where these things have been cut loose 200 feet above the ground and hit with such force that they re-liquefy the plaster and nothing survives.
Now it's time to see if British Columbia's first full dinosaur will make it to its destination in one piece. They're not out of the woods yet. In the Alberta Badlands, the Ankylosaur team waits for the rain to clear, so Victoria Arbour can retrieve her prized Gorgosaurus bone.
It's frustrating because I think all of us want to get out there, but we just can't when it's this wet and muddy.
And in Tumbler Ridge, the Hadrosaur team watches anxiously as a chopper attempts to lift BC's first complete dinosaur skeleton out of the ground and into the air. If it makes it, it'll become their museum's first homegrown exhibit. Guessing its weight is a dangerous game when you're flying dinos. Rich calculated that it's about 4,400 kilograms, close to this chopper's maximum. If he's wrong, the pilot will have to dump the fossil. After several nerve-wracking minutes, they finally hear from the chopper pilot.
We just confirmed how much the jacket actually weighed, and the total came out to 4,400.
Nice.
Nice. Well calculated.
Yes.
Bump it.
It's a close call. The fossil weighs just 600 kilos under the limit.
Can you let us know when it touches down on the trailer, please?
It's on the deck, nice and smooth.
It landed?
It's down.
Yes. I'll sleep very well tonight.
I was very elated to see this thing successfully on the trailer, perfectly placed. It was fantastic. It was like better than 10 Christmases.
In Alberta, the rain stopped falling, and it's safe for the Ankylosaur team to return to the Badlands. This is Victoria's last day, and she's hoping her fossil survived the rain. The bone is intact, still safely lodged in the sandstone.
The other day, I put a little bit of a protective bandage on this bone. We have to bail out the water, go down a little bit further, and then jacket it.
Victoria will go home with the bone from Gorgosaurus, the park's most terrifying predator. The same type of dinosaur that gnawed on the bone of the hadrosaur that Scott found. It's an incredible link to a world that vanished millions of years ago.
Those are the consolation prizes, and it means by being open to these things, we always get a prize.
I think we'll actually put the branch into this one.
With the bone ready for transport, it's time for Victoria to say goodbye to the Badlands. She may not have found Cutler's Cave or her prized Ankylosaur, but every dig has its own rewards.
Really, paleontology is something where you have to work long and hard, and if you find anything at all, you're doing pretty good.
Well, I'm extremely happy that I had a chance to go out to look at some of the potential sites, and even though we didn't find it, I'm very happy with what we did find out. So I would say that this fieldwork has been a success for me.
In Tumbler Ridge, the hadrosaur finally arrives at its new home.
So we do want to take the entire skeleton, clean them up, make them presentable, and turn them into the central main exhibit for our gallery.
It'll take time to get it ready for display, but for Rich and Lisa, it's a labor of love.
This is a frontier, one of the few remaining in North America. There's a chance for you to make a difference, to go into an area that nobody's been in before, and to find things nobody's seen before.
Rich McRae and Lisa Buckley have proven dinosaur skeletons can be found in BC. They'll continue to scour the rock face and search the creeks on the hunt for their next big find. It's the season of the dinosaur. The world's top paleontologists dig into Canada's prehistoric past to unearth a living world buried in time.
Bingo! Got dinosaurs.
They'll battle heat and floods and the ticking clock as they track the footsteps of dinosaurs. And the most incredible creatures ever to walk the earth will live again on Dino Hunt. This week on Dino Hunt, 2 teams race against the rising tides in the Bay of Fundy, Nova Scotia, in search of the dawn of the dinosaur. On the shores of the Minas Basin, the tracker team is hunting for signs of the first dinosaurs to walk this earth before the fossils get washed away.
It is an absolute shame I can't take this back with me.
And at Wasson's Bluff, if the prosauropod team can get to the bones before they're swept into the sea,
Not stop the tide.
they might uncover a new species of dinosaur that outlived a global catastrophe.
These animals are the survivors.
The search for Canada's oldest dinosaurs begins in Nova Scotia's Bay of Fundy. The cliffs looking out on the Atlantic are hundreds of millions of years old. The coastal tides are the biggest in the world, and for dino hunters, they're both a curse and a blessing.
It causes some challenge in navigating around the beach, but it also causes all this erosion that's really good for the paleontology.
Dr. Tim Fedak specializes in hunting for the world's earliest dinosaur fossils. He's leading a team that'll be digging deep into the red sandstone at Wasson's Bluff.
You guys are hired, by the way.
Fedak's team will need to work quickly. The site is underwater for most of the year, but over the next 10 days, the tides will be low.
Shovels, rakes, implements of destruction. We don't want to get too carried away digging a big hole. If we can't collect it within the time period we have, the tide's gonna come up and wash it away. We cannot stop the tide.
Fedak and his team are searching for the ancestors of the famous long-necked dinosaurs, the prosauropods. These creatures were among the first dinosaurs to evolve in the Triassic period, over 200 million years ago. T. Rex is closer to us in time than the prosauropods. Tyrannosaurus rex lived 66 million years ago, but to get back to the time of the prosauropod, we have to go back an additional 134 million years. And Fedak may have discovered a new species of one of the world's oldest dinosaurs.
For the past 17 years, we've been doing collection work at the site and have identified more and more specimens, and it does appear that this is a new species of prosauropod dinosaur.
There are at least 12 species of prosauropod, but paleontologists suspect the number could be much higher. A new genus in the Bay of Fundy could add to the growing list. Since Fedak was last here, tons of rubble have buried the site.
There you go, perfect.
And if they want to find the bones, they may have to dodge the rocks.
This is a dangerous site. Everyone needs to know that, and I don't want anyone hurt.
But the team is willing to take the risk if it means finding a key to the past.
Finding a nesting site or skulls would be very exciting. We always hope for a once-in-a-lifetime find.
If FIDAC hopes to find evidence of a new species of prosauropod, he'd better hurry. He's racing against a rising tide. Across the bay, Tyler Shaw is heading even further back in time, looking for dinosaurs even older than the prosauropods.
I always say that paleontologists are just little kids that never grew up.
Tyler Shaw is a paleontologist with the local Fundy Geological Museum. He's scouting the shores of the Minas Basin, looking for traces of the world's first dinosaurs. But unlike most of his colleagues, he's more interested in stone than bone. His first stop, Paddy's Island, a site that hasn't been dino hunted in over 20 years.
So this area is Triassic in age. Well, this is just excellently exciting. That's got to be what was Paddy's Island, but we're going to be in luck, I think. All that low ridge running through there should be nice and flat.
Tyler and his colleague Nevin Dow will be searching an area that's underwater for most of the year. But as the world's highest tide ebbs, it exposes a dino hunter's paradise. There are only a few places in the world that have evidence of the first dinosaurs, and Nova Scotia is one of them. The tracker team isn't looking for bones, but something else.
When you see nice flat rocks, that's the place to look for dinosaur prints. One of the things I love with tracks is you can look at them, and if you've got two in a row, you've got movement. If you think of them as frames from a movie, each footprint is a single frame, and as you stick them together, you can start to play back that animal's life. An animal can leave multiple prints during their lifetime. They can only leave one skeleton. Skeletons are really the byproduct of a dead creature. These are the byproduct of life. Unfortunately, as the tide comes in and out, it does eat away at these rocks. No dinosaur yet.
If Tyler finds any tracks here, they'll belong to some of the oldest terrestrial creatures that ever lived. And they lived here. Fossils found along the shores of the Bay of Fundy come from an important period in the Earth's history. 200 million years ago, the Earth's continents were concentrated in one landmass called Pangaea. Today's Nova Scotia was at its steamy center. The world was hot, and reptiles ruled. But the humid home of the first dinosaurs wasn't to last. It was shattered by a geological catastrophe that remade the world. Clues to understanding this earth-shattering event can be found in the cliffs on the Bay of Fundy. And no one understands it better than Dr. Paul Olson, who made the first major dinosaur find at this site in 1976.
Standing in front of a cliff of ancient basalt. Basalt is a hardened form of lava, similar to what forms in Iceland today. And in this area, it comprises of evidence of one of the largest mass extinctions in Earth history.
Two extinction events defined the age of the dinosaurs. One at the beginning of their rule, and one that ended it. The Triassic mass extinction started with the breakup of Pangaea, triggered by volcanic eruptions which likely began in Morocco. Back then, a neighbor of Nova Scotia.
But they were of enormous magnitude, larger than anything we are familiar with today at all, larger than humankind has ever seen.
The eruptions lasted for thousands of years. Lava covered an area as big as the United States. Nova Scotia was buried in molten rock.
Huge amounts of lava, like these cliffs, poured out over the landscape, obliterating all the life in its path, and yielding huge amounts of carbon dioxide and sulfur, ultimately resulting in the extinction of maybe 50 to 75% of all animal and plant life on Earth.
The prosauropods that survived the Triassic mass extinction faced a desolate world, scavenging a burnt-out landscape, subsisting on whatever meager plant supply remained. the prosauropod team is looking for clues to their survival in the bones at Wasson's Bluff.
This is a very unique site in Canada, in North America, and in the world because of the specific time period. This is immediately after the end Triassic mass extinction. So these animals are the survivors. This is the dawn of the dinosaurs.
But if the bones aren't recovered in time, the Bay of Fundy will reclaim the ancient specimens. The team has spent 2 days removing the top layer of erosional debris. And with only a few days left to identify a new species of prosauropod, they need some heavy-duty help.
Bingo! Got it! Woo. Nice. I think you just discovered our bone bed there, Jack. Thank you very much. So this is a prosauropod dinosaur vertebra. That's just the back part. It's been buried for 200 million years, and this is the first time it's seeing the air again.
Is this important to you? What we've just done?
Feels pretty important to me.
He's found his first fossil. It belongs to a creature that lived and died 134 million years before T-Rex and Triceratops, and 200 million years before human beings.
This is a 3 to 4 meter long animal, and we're at the tip of the tail. We've got to expose quite a bit. If it's isolated, there's going to be more isolated bits around. So right now, it's just get all this erosional debris off and start figuring out how we're going to do some collecting.
Fedax found the tip of the tail, and if he's lucky, there's a skull at the other end. Two teams face off against the rising tides in the Bay of Fundy. At Wasson's Bluff, the prosauropod team has days to identify a new species of dinosaur.
Fingers are crossed that we'll see a skull. That's the ultimate thing we want to see.
And in the Minas Basin, Tyler Shaw is climbing the walls to track some of the world's earliest dinosaurs.
It means that these are the grandfather of all terrestrial life.
On the beaches of Minas Basin in the Bay of Fundy, Nova Scotia, the tracker team is hunting for evidence of some of the world's oldest dinosaurs.
Well, this is just excellently exciting.
And at Wasson's Bluff, Tim Fedak's prosauropod team has hit pay dirt.
Bingo! Got it!
But they're racing against a rising tide, looking to claim their prize. For Fedak's team, the fastest way to the dig site is straight downhill. 200 million years ago, this area was a desolate wasteland. A volcanic catastrophe had killed off the majority of all life on Earth. And yet here, the prosauropod survived.
Everything that we see at Wasson's Bluff is found above the North Mountain basalt, so we know we're in the early Jurassic time frame.
The prosauropod team hopes the bones here will provide them with clues as to how these dinosaurs beat the overwhelming odds, and if they actually belong to a new species. They've found the tip of a tail, but have only days to see if there's a skull buried at the other end.
The skull is really the prize and most important piece in a research question about trying to identify what type of dinosaurs these are.
Well, the first couple of days it was a lot of shoveling and not much finding, so now we're going at a pretty good rate.
So while collecting this bone, there was a small platy element, part of the lower jaw. Now we don't have any teeth. That would really confirm that it was lower jaw, but the shape is right.
Spotting 200-million-year-old bones is like finding a needle in a haystack. But Fedak started his career as a sculptor and medical illustrator, and he can tell what bones look like in 3D, no matter how well they're hidden.
So maybe you want to come down around and I'll show you what this bone looks like. You just got to get your eye used to seeing that.
To imagine that something was here and had died here 200 million years ago, it's incredible. It's like I'm holding a piece of history.
And the right piece of history could mean the discovery of a new species of prosauropod dinosaur in the Bay of Fundy.
So I think I found something there. Not sure. It kind of looks...
It looks like a little bit of bone fragment. Yeah, it might be a bit of tooth.
200 million years ago, food was scarce. Mass extinction had killed off most plant life, So to survive, these early dinosaurs needed to be able to digest even the toughest vegetation.
They would bite off ferns or conifer trees. They didn't chew it like a cow does. They had gastroliths, stomach stones that ground up the plant material just like birds do today.
The discovery of a tooth means Fedak is one step closer to finding what he came here for, a skull.
We do prioritize. What we'd really want to find is a skull.
The prosauropod team knows exactly what they're looking for, but the Bay of Fundy's first fossils were discovered by accident. In the 19th century, geologists came to Joggins Cliffs in search of coal. They found 315-million-year-old fossilized trees, and what was inside them would change science forever.
This site was visited by Sir Charles Lyell and his accomplice, Sir William Dawson, native Nova Scotian, in the mid-1800s. And they made one of the most important paleontological discoveries of all time, and really is a starting point for the story of dinosaurs. This is the exact spot that Lyell and Dawson made their discovery, in the exact same way, where a tree had tumbled down. They were investigating it, and lo and behold, in this tree, they found bones that pushed the fossil record of tetrapods, reptiles and amphibians, farther back in geologic time than had been known up to that point.
The bones were those of a small lizard-like creature that lived 300 million years ago, 70 million years before the first dinosaurs, and 234 million years before T-Rex. Charles Darwin used the discovery as evidence for his theory of evolution, and they remain the earliest signs of terrestrial life ever found.
So what's especially significant about these reptiles at Joggins is that these are the ancestors of the dinosaurs and all reptiles alive today.
Long before mammals, birds, and dinosaurs roamed the earth, the first four-legged creatures, tetrapods, took their first steps onto land. Their fossilized footprints give us information about how these terrestrial vertebrates lived. And because they often moved in shallow water, these tracks aren't easy to find. It takes experts like Tyler Shaw who know where and when to look.
The reason we've come out at night is tracks are really dependent on the light angle. You can't control the angle of the sun, but we can control the angle of our nice lanterns here. This rock here, there's a lot of water to it because of all the ripple marks, and if we hold the light at low angles to it, we can start to see them.
Today, it's solid rock. But millions of years ago, long before the dinosaurs, this was a sandy seashore. Over time, tectonic plate movement pushed up the rocks, hiding the fact that this ancient beach was far from deserted.
The animal we're looking at was moving through a shallow amount of water, pushing itself up and dragging its body along. So you're looking at an animal with a distance of 70 or 80 centimeters between 1 foot and the subsequent next footfall, at least the size of a German Shepherd. It means that these are the grandfather of all terrestrial life, all the animals that walk about. This animal would then give rise to our early amphibians. They in turn give rise to the early reptiles, which Dawson and Lyell found at Joggins, and finally into our dinosaurs.
After trailing their ancestors by lamplight, Tyler Shaw's tracker team is hoping to find some of the first dinosaur prints of all time, before time runs out. And the prosauropod team races to find evidence of a new species in a tricky dig site.
There is perhaps no more complicated place to be
before the tide comes in. At Wasson's Bluff, the prosauropod team has just 4 days left to find the bones they need in order to identify a new species of dinosaur.
What we'd really want to find is a skull.
And in the Minas Basin, the tracker team is on the hunt, waiting for their big break. A week ago, Paddy's Island, Nova Scotia was covered in water. And 220 million years ago, it was inhabited by dinosaurs.
This is actually a really good spot for the boat.
Tyler Shaw and Nevin Dow have been waiting patiently to walk the same path as these ancient animals. And it might just pay off.
Usually I carry a pile of chicken bones for good luck. I figure it's sympathetic magic, but we haven't had chicken dinner in a while, so.
Looks like it's not his lucky day.
Ay, ay, ay. De nada. At a distance, it looked footprint-ish, but close up, it was not. Oh, geez, crabs. Hey, got it. There is a Atreus. There's the footprint. There is toe, toe, and toe. There's the handprint. There's a bigger one. We got dinosaurs. Awesome.
But what kind of dinosaur left these tracks? One clue comes from time stamping the rocks that hold the print. They're 220 million years old. That means whatever left this track was among the first dinosaurs to appear on Earth.
I think this is the break line for that. Yeah. Yeah, shift that. There's my dinosaur footprint there. So it's walking up there. There, yeah. There we go. We have here at least 1, 2, 3 or more of these plant-eating dinosaurs.
The size and shape of these tracks suggest that they were made by a dinosaur called a Atreus, a Triassic dinosaur that lived 220 million years ago. Atreus was quadrupedal and had bird-like hips.
This is a small fellow, standing probably about this tall. He's going to be young. This is a bit older, not fully grown adult yet. So this is somewhere in the mid, this is juvenile, the disruptive teen years, basically. How cute are you? Like, they're just so almost fresh. You almost expect to just see him just standing over there looking back at me, wondering what the heck I'm doing. You just want to reach out and kind of stroke underneath its chin. But it's been dead for over 200 million years.
Atreus is known only from its fossilized tracks. No bones have ever been found, so track hunters like Tyler Shaw have provided all the information we know about one of the world's first dinosaurs.
They don't have fingers like we have. They're more closer knit together. They walk on all 4 feet, but most of the time, they pop their arms up and just run along on 2 feet.
The early dinosaurs' nimble feet helped them survive in a world of nasty predators. But 201 million years ago, their world turned against them. At the start of the Triassic period, the Bay of Fundy area was situated at the equator, landlocked in Pangaea. As the supercontinent broke apart, earthquakes rocked the region. They hammered at the cliffs, cracking them open. 200 million years later, these fractures and crevices are still chiseled into the rock face, posing serious challenges to Tim Fedak and his crew.
There is perhaps no more complicated place to be in terms of structure. I refer to these as earthquake dinosaurs because the dinosaur bones have been faulted and chopped up by major earthquakes during the time. These bones were buried and another earthquake happened and cut through the bones. That makes this site fairly frustrating to work.
The highest tides in the world also mean that the fossils found along these shores are saturated with seawater and extremely fragile.
When the bones are in the bedrock here at the site, they're mush. They basically have the consistency of cream cheese. So you do have to be very careful with them.
The bones are so fragile, they need glue to keep them together.
The preservation of even one bone in the fossil record, I think, is like winning the lottery. Having your whole skeleton preserved is like winning 2 lotteries, one week after the other.
Digging for 200-million-year-old dinosaurs is painstaking and frustrating work, but Fedak and his team know the prize is worth the effort.
Lee has found a nice rib. Kimball found a smaller rib called a gastralia. Both of those are very small.
While looking for a skull, they've unearthed what could be another big find.
In the past 15 years, we've been collecting articulated material from here, adults, subadults, but we have been always looking and keeping our eye out for very, very young hatchlings or egg material.
So there's always the chance that we're going to stumble upon a breeding site.
The team will keep searching for a skull, but now there's also the possibility of uncovering a breeding site. And that's a reason to celebrate, Bay of Fundy style.
Get ready, guys.
How about for wedge?
Dogs and clams are not a good idea. I've tested that theory.
Cheers. Can't do this in Alberta.
That's right.
Clam bake's over. The prosauropod team digs in with renewed vigor. They're hunting a new species of prosauropod, and maybe they'll find the nursery.
Oh, ideally, we would like to find a nest site. That would be perfect.
And on Paddy's Island, the tracker team is close to finding the footprints of the world's oldest dinosaurs, if they don't lose them to the ocean floor.
It is an absolute shame I can't take this back with me.
At Wasson's Bluff, time is running out just as the prosauropod team finds itself on the verge of a breakthrough.
There's always the chance that we're going to stumble upon a breeding site.
And in the Bay of Fundy, the tracker team is desperate to get their 220-million-year-old dinosaur prints off Paddy's Island before the incoming tide returns them to the ocean. The tracks are stamped into heavy slabs of rock that have been broken up by the force of the waves.
I really am trying to figure out how we can cut weight down, but our boat driver would probably freak right out if I brought it back. It is an absolute shame I can't take this back with me.
No bones from the Atrapus dinosaur have ever been found, so tracks like these are extremely valuable in determining how one of the world's first dinosaurs behaved.
Flip it back over so that it hopefully protects it. So I'm going to try to convince someone come back in a boat with nobody else in it and bring this out.
But if they wait too long, the powerful undertow could carry these rocks and the prints on them out to sea, or smash them against the ocean floor. So Tyler's using every second he has to figure out as much as possible about the elusive Atrapus.
If you take 4 times the length of the footprint, so the distance from the tip of the toe to the back of the heel, and times that by 4, so we go 1, 2, 3, 4, his hips sit about here. And that's the distance from its hips to its shoulder. So then you tack on, probably that same length for a tail. So about to here, a little bit for a head, and you've got the length of an animal. So from just this little information, even a set of 3 footprints, as long as they're sequential, we're able to start to fill in what this animal looks like. It's starting to become a living, breathing creature.
Fossilized prints show dinosaurs on the move and a moving picture of their behavior. Dino prints can be found all over the world, usually in areas near streams and rivers. This makes Tumbler Ridge, BC, the perfect hunting ground for West Coast track star Dr. Richard McRae.
A skeleton is just a pile of bones. I mean, there's a lot you can get from it, but tracks were made by living animals. The closest that we're going to get to looking at dinosaurs other than a time machine.
McRae works with his wife, paleontologist Lisa Buckley. A few weeks ago, they found a new set of mysterious dinosaur tracks. But getting to them is dangerous work.
Did you bring a radio with you?
No. Well, we're going into a new discovery. It's in a place that we call Dinosaur Gorge. What we have is a near vertical track face. The tracks would have been formed near a coastal plain 130, 140 million years ago until mountain building began in this area. So the North American plate ran into other plates, and it's kind of like running a car into a brick wall, and the hood crumples. So you have tracks that are, horizontal, but with mountain building, they go vertical sometimes.
To get to the tracks, Rich has to scale 60 feet of crumbling rock face, and he needs to work fast, or he'll be climbing in the dark.
The light's only good for about an hour because it's such a narrow canyon.
Judging by the age of the rock face, the prints were likely fossilized 140 million years ago. But it will take a closer look to determine who made them.
We don't know yet what else is up there. About 40% of the footprints are visible from the ground, so we're getting up on ropes.
This kind of dinosaur hunting requires a paleontologist with rock climbing skills and a willingness to take risks.
Any kind of danger that you have working on a regular site, multiply it by 10 or even 100 when you're working on a vertical face.
I cannot take my eyes off of what the rope and the webbing are doing for a second, because if I do, that might be the moment that something comes loose and screams down at Rich.
The risk pays off. It's a good-sized print, perfectly embossed in the mountainside. The question is, who made it?
So I'm looking at a track here, three-toed. Question is this a plant eater or a meat eater? Well, for meat eaters, the footprints are usually longer than they are wide. And this one's a little bit longer than it is wide. The other clue is the meat-eating digits, they have very sharp claws. And these digits look like they have rounded terminations. But the real clue here is that there is a handprint in front of it. And this is definitely a plant-eating dinosaur print.
140 million years ago, plant-eating dinosaurs walked on all fours. But meat-eaters were theropods, bipeds who hunted on 2 feet.
So I'm just going to go down so we can see very large track. And there's the outline of the back of one of the outer digits, tapers off to a fine tipped claw. There's the length of this, and that's I think 62 or 63 centimeters long, and it's nowhere near as wide. This is certainly a large meat-eating dinosaur.
We only have a couple of specimens that are from that time period, so having a exposure of rock like this that has a large amount of tracks on it, it's going to give us a lot of information about what kinds of animals were roaming around this part of BC.
The tracks were laid down at the end of the Jurassic era. Aside from the fossils in Nova Scotia, these are the oldest traces of dinosaurs anywhere in Canada. In the Bay of Fundy, Tim Fedak's prosauropod team might have a new lead on the dawn of the dinosaur.
The skull contains the most information, but animals change considerably through their growth from young hatchling to fully grown adult, and that change is really important to understand evolutionarily.
They're still hoping for a skull, but they've added another find to their wish list, a prosauropod nest.
We're keeping an eye out for bones that are from much smaller animals that might suggest a breeding area where there might be preserved eggs or smaller skeletons.
Oh, ideally, we would like to find a nest site. That would be perfect.
If the team uncovers hatchlings with the same features as the adults they found here, they'll have the proof they need to name a new species of prosauropod.
We want to be very cautious about naming a new species on a single isolated growth stage, whether that's adult or young. It's good to complete that picture and try to identify, to link the adult skeleton with younger individuals.
A prosauropod nesting site in the Bay of Fundy would be the first of its kind in North America. But if Fedak and his prosauropod team don't find it fast, it will be swept away forever. And the tracker team has to get their prints off the island before they sink like stones. On Paddy's Island in the Bay of Fundy, Tyler Shaw's tracker team has identified some incredible footprints. But if they slip back into the sea, he'll lose hard evidence of the world's first dinosaurs. And at Wasson's Bluff, the clock is running out on a potential new discovery.
Time's ticking. We have about a day and a half.
Tim Fedak's prosauropod team is working fast to see if they've found a major discovery, a nesting site of prosauropods, which would be the first of its kind in North America.
We have some great sites in South Africa where full nests have been collected, embryos still in the eggs, and they've been fully prepared out.
In 2005, a 190-million-year-old nesting site was uncovered in South Africa. It predated previously known sites by 100 million years. The discovery revealed evidence of complex nesting behaviors, like group nesting and the repeated use of nesting sites by a single species. The highly organized nature of the nests suggests that the mother may have arranged the eggs after she laid them. The sites also revealed surprising changes in prosauropod growth sequences.
There's different aspects of the skeleton that grow faster than the others. The skull actually had a slower growth rate, whereas the neck had a much faster growth rate. The animal seems to change its posture from walking on all fours to adults that walked mainly on their back legs.
Linking a hatchling to an adult could provide the prosauropod team with all the information they need to declare a new species of prosauropod. But time is running out.
We had bone very close by, so if I go in and there's more articulated material, it should show up fairly quickly.
Fidak needs to work faster and dig harder if he's going to beat the tide. He's turned to power tools to speed things up.
But the jackhammer might not respond well to this rock face, so we just have to see.
Fortunately, Fidak catches a break.
So we just lifted this up and just found another bone fragment here. There's bone exposed here and on this other piece. And they just go together like that.
Before Fidak can figure out exactly what kind of bone he's found, he discovers he's got an audience, a local tour group led by young colleague Tyler Shaw.
Everywhere you see the little bags with orange flagging tape tied to them are pieces of bone they have found. Somewhere in my little handy-dandy book. They're creatures that kind of look like this. Probably not exactly this fellow, but close enough. So the star of this excavation is Dr. Tim Fidak.
How are you today? What? This is a bone that we just collected today, and it's a little bit of rib bone. It's been buried in this stone for 200 million years.
Thanks to the work of Fidak, Shaw, and local dinosaur hunters, this area of Nova Scotia is becoming a mecca for dino fans who flock to the little town of Parsborough to check out the museum. And just a few streets away is another kind of museum, run by amateur bone digger Eldon George.
That's my pet.
Eldon George is a local legend and a rock star among geologists. He's been combing the beaches, collecting rare fossils and minerals since he was 8 years old.
I found these on March the 31st, 1983.
What Eldon found that day made history.
I happened to come across this in 3 inches of water. I thought there was bird tracks. And then I realized that I was looking at something very rare.
He was right. These tiny tracks were made 205 million years ago by a baby coelophysis. They're among the smallest dinosaur tracks ever discovered. Over 200 million years ago, this baby coelophysis shared its homeland with the Atreapus dinosaur. They roamed and fed in a world of warm, fertile jungles. But when that world disappeared, they disappeared with it. But the dinosaurs Tim Fidak is uncovering somehow survived. They managed to eke out an existence in a harsh post-extinction world. Fidak's mission to prove that a new species of prosauropod once lived here and lived through the cataclysm is coming down to the wire. He needs definitive evidence, a skull or nesting site, and he's getting close.
We have 10 elements, that's not too bad, but what we really want to do is make sure that there's no articulated material here that's in danger of being eroded. So we need to collect that if it's here. Time's ticking, we have about a day and a half.
The rest of the bones might be within reach, but for the prosauropod team, the tide is coming in and time is running out. And in the Bay of Fundy, the tracker team races against the tide to carry out the evidence of Canada's oldest dinosaurs.
This is absolutely amazing.
In the Minas Basin, the tracker team is on a search and rescue mission for ancient Atreapus tracks before the tides wash them away. At Wasson's Bluff, the prosauropod team has only hours to collect vital information about what might be a new species of dinosaur before the bone bed becomes a seabed. The crew makes one last perilous journey down to recover what they can from the site before the ocean reclaims the beach.
You hear the tide lapping, and it's going to be burying this site.
And to protect their 200-million-year-old fossils, they turn to a centuries-old technique.
So plaster and burlap's been used for hundreds of years.
The prosauropod team suspects they have the evidence they need to name a new species of one of the world's oldest dinosaurs. But they can't be sure until they get the bones back to the lab. One thing they are sure of, these tiny treasures help tell an epic story. These dinosaurs witnessed one of the worst extinctions our world has ever known. They survived what most other life on Earth could not. The prosauropods got their cosmic reprieve when Pangaea broke apart 200 million years ago. Landlocked deserts became lush new coastlines. Jungles returned, and over time, the prosauropods evolved into giants.
Prosauropods are the ancestors of what would become the sauropods, the largest animals ever to walk on the Earth.
$200 million years ago, these little dinosaurs had an amazing destiny and left an extraordinary legacy. And now, FEDAC's team is preserving what remains before they're lost at sea. Across the bay, Tyler Shaw has managed another boat trip, solo this time, to retrieve the Atreopus tracks.
I'm just going to try to swing the boat around here.
It's almost hard to believe that, this site hasn't been looked at in 20 years or more. The dinosaur tracks are still fresh and coming out, and it's well worth a trip back. This is absolutely amazing.
For Tyler, a summer of tracking dinosaurs is ending with a win.
Today, I definitely feel like a 3-year-old with a new toy. Even just coming out today, the view alone was worth the price of admission. And on top of that, dinosaur tracks, you can't have much better day. Unless it started raining gold from the sky, I'm as happy as a pig in mud.
Back at Wasson's Bluff, FEDAC's fossils are finally ready to be transported to safety.
Good.
The team packs up, but they're already setting their sights on next year.
I will come back as often as I'm asked.
The experience has been really great for me. I found some bones and I was really excited about it because I never thought I'd ever find something like that.
I was actually thinking before starting this dig that this might be the last time in quite a long time I'd be coming down here, but these beds are actually starting to show some promise.
Even though FEDAC has been working the site for nearly 2 decades, surprising discoveries are made every year. While the ancient bones are carefully loaded for transport, nature begins to reclaim these shores.
All right, let's go. We got to get back to the museum before the tide comes up.
Bye!
And now the hard work begins. It'll take several months of meticulous analysis to determine the exact results of the dig.
These are the oldest dinosaur bones in Canada, so it does take a long time to expose them. But after 9 months now, we can see features in some of the elements that do suggest that this is a new species.
The team's dedication has resulted in a significant discovery, but FEDAC knows that their work in the Bay of Fundy is far from over. In the months to come, the tides will expose more ancient secrets in these cliffs. And he'll be back again, digging through the past in search of some of the earliest dinosaurs. Next time on Dino Hunt, 2 teams will try to solve one of the Earth's greatest mysteries. What killed the dinosaurs? Was it an asteroid? Or were they already in trouble when it slammed into the planet? It's the season of the dinosaur. The world's top paleontologists dig into Canada's prehistoric past to unearth a living world buried in time.
Bingo! We got dinosaurs.
They'll battle heat and floods and the ticking clock as they track the footsteps of dinosaurs. and the most incredible creatures ever to walk the earth will live again on Dino Hunt. 66 million years ago, an asteroid slammed into the Earth, a cosmic collision that ended the age of the dinosaurs. Or did it? Today, on Dino Hunt, two teams are digging for clues to the 66 million-year-old question: what killed the dinosaurs? In the grasslands of Saskatchewan, the McGill team traces a titan's last steps. And in Drumheller, Alberta, the Tyrrell team is searching for a rare horned dinosaur. If the teams can find more bones, they'll know how the giants lived and died. In Montreal, a team of McGill University paleontology students is gearing up and heading west. They're prepping for a 3-week-long expedition in Saskatchewan.
There's dead things in here.
Yeah.
They'll be working under paleontologist Hans Larsson of McGill's Red Path Museum.
I love dinosaurs. I think most people love dinosaurs. And putting more dinosaurs on display, I think, will be a very great thing for this museum.
Larsson has been on dinosaur hunts from Nunavut to Africa, pursuing a particular interest in how dinosaurs evolved, tracing their story until their extinction and beyond. Understanding what took these titans down gives a vivid picture of the world 66 million years ago.
The mass extinction event is filled with lots of controversy. I mean, we know that all non-bird dinosaurs went extinct at that time. How they went extinct is a big question, though. Was it a slow event or fast event? Which things were going first? What are the dynamics?
To get to where the answers are buried takes a 3,500-kilometer road trip to the prairies.
Welcome to Saskatchewan.
They're heading for a dig site in Grasslands National Park in Saskatchewan's Badlands.
The main reason for going out is that we have a beautiful set of rocks, which are right around the end Cretaceous mass extinction.
They're filled with the bones of some of the last dinosaurs to walk the earth.
We're going to a site where we found a partial duck-billed dinosaur, Edmontosaurus, huge.
Edmontosaurus was a massive plant eater that disappeared 66 million years ago.
We have one of the last dinosaurs out there. And we have this now potential to explore some questions like were dinosaurs still evolving just before the mass extinction? That would be phenomenal.
Most of the team is made up of rookies and city kids who have no idea what's in store for them. But it's not going to be summer camp.
I bring students with me who have often never been to Western Canada before. It's often the first times they're sleeping in tents.
With the camp set up, the serious work begins. To find the answer to one of the contentious questions of all time: what killed the dinosaurs? Dinosaurs first evolved 230 million years ago, ruling until their extinction 66 million years ago. They disappeared the same time that an asteroid slammed into the Yucatan Peninsula with the force of 10 billion nuclear bombs. But did the asteroid kill the dinosaurs? Or were their numbers already shrinking? 600 kilometers west, another team of bone diggers is asking the same question. 70 million years ago, in what is now Drumheller, Alberta, dinosaurs may have already been affected by environmental changes, long before the asteroid hit. And evidence of their final footsteps might be embedded in these rocks. That's what paleontologist François Terrien wants to find.
Fossils have been known here in southern Alberta for probably millennia. They were known by the First Nations in those days. They just didn't know what the fossils belonged to.
Terrien's expeditions take him to locations across Europe and North America, studying the bone shapes and habitats of dinosaurs, and collecting clues to create a picture of what this lost world might have looked like. And he thinks some of the best evidence is right here in the rocks near the Red Deer River.
So the question I'm asking is, are climatic and environmental changes responsible for the extinction of dinosaurs, or was the meteorite impact 66 million years ago the sole cause for the extinction of the dinosaurs?
Terrien works for the Royal Tyrrell Museum in Drumheller, Alberta, which is home to Canada's largest bone collection. And it's filled with fossils from the last days of the dinosaurs. This summer, Terrien's looking to add a unique prize, an Rhinoceratops. It lived 70 million years ago, just as he believes the climate started to change. Skulls are the only fossilized evidence of this species, and they've only been found in Drumheller.
What's really exciting about a Rhinoceratops is it's probably the rarest horned dinosaur ever discovered in Alberta. But a Rhinoceratops was only known based on 2 skulls, and that was it, and there was no remains of the rest of the body.
A skeleton would help Terrien understand how the dinosaur fit into its changing world, and whether it was already vulnerable to environmental changes in the time leading up to the asteroid's impact. Terrien enlists the help of his museum team.
There's been a few times that we've come down to the site, and flying the river has been a bald eagle. You don't get that in an office. It's not even like a job. It's like, yay, I get to go do my hobby today.
The team started working on this dig after a local stumbled on some bones here last year.
So you just have to gently pick away, keeping an eye out for everything.
Donna McLeod has spent 10 years mining fossils in Drumheller and recreating dinosaurs for the museum's exhibits. Her trained eye spots a 70-million-year-old jawbone. And it looks like it comes from the dinosaur they're searching for.
I have a dentary of a ceratopsian. We believe it's a Rhinoceratops. This is the back of the jaw.
The team is panning for gold, hoping for the big win. And Donna has just found the first nugget. A complete Rhinoceratops skeleton would enhance their image of the dinosaur world and the changes they had to contend with. In Saskatchewan, the McGill crew is on the move to where they uncovered the Edmontosaurus last year. With no roads to the dig site, they're starting their workday with a 6-kilometer hike.
We're heading now to an outcrop of the Frenchman Formation that preserves the boundary of the end Cretaceous, the boundary that actually signifies the total extinction of all dinosaurs and about 75% of all life as was known back then on the planet.
The trek through 40-degree heat is worth the sweat. Proof of the mass extinction is right underfoot.
Let's have at it.
Awesome.
Oh yeah, look at that.
And a swing of the pickaxe reveals the line between the present and the prehistoric past.
This is often called the KT boundary, and KT stands for Cretaceous Tertiary. This line is dated at 66 million years ago. And what's really cool is that it's so simple. Everything below here has dinosaurs. Everything above has no dinosaurs. That's the extinction of all dinosaurs as we know it.
The boundary marks the moment a 10-kilometer-wide asteroid smashed into what is now Mexico, triggering a hellstorm of fire and ice. Billions of tons of debris were launched into the sky, blocking the sun and ushering in a perpetual winter. Some of the debris fell here, and Hans has found a simple way to identify it.
It's pure clay. That's the boundary. If you taste it, it has no grit at all. So it's sort of like toothpaste. And it's filled with shock quartz and iridium from the fallout. And that's a taste of death.
These rocks hold some of the last dinosaurs to walk the Earth 66 million years ago. Now the team just has to find them. Was it a single cataclysmic event that took the dinosaurs down, or was climate change the architect of their extinction? Two teams search for clues to the same mystery. What killed the dinosaurs? In Alberta, the Tyrrell team is on the hunt for a first ever Rhinoceratops skeleton.
Is that a new one? It's new? Oh, yeah.
And in Saskatchewan, the McGill crew unearths a 5-ton giant that could hold the answer to the end of dinosaurs.
Where the skeleton leads us will be the mystery.
In Western Canada, two teams are searching for the answer to the age-old question: what killed the dinosaurs? In Drumheller, Alberta, the Tyrrell team is looking for the first bones from a Rhinoceratops body. And in Saskatchewan's Grassland National Park, the McGill crew is digging for the truth about the end of the dinosaurs. They're so close to the answer, they can taste it.
That's a taste of death.
These rocks were formed 66 million years ago.
Some of these animals are obviously extinct. Some of the other animals we find here are still around today. The turtle that this came from still live in rivers and lakes.
If some animals survived the asteroid impact, then why didn't the dinosaurs? Larson thinks that a huge plant eater called Edmontosaurus may hold the answer to this mystery.
There's only one giant hadrosaur at this time in the rock record, the Edmontosaurus. And if we can get enough of it, we can test, is this Edmontosaurus different than the Edmontosaurus that are found below it?
Those differences could provide clues as to what was going on in the ecosystem right before the mass extinction.
We want to know what is the extinction pattern out there. And if we can figure out the pattern, maybe we can get a little bit closer to even the process. Was the impact the process? Was it the gun that actually took out the planet?
He found some of the 5-ton creature last year, and he's back to find the rest.
There's two lower back, or sort of back of the back, vertebrae from a large duck-billed dinosaur. We've excavated here last year just to explore, see what's here, and we found a bunch of ribs. And then we buried it because we didn't have a collecting permit for it at the time. And this year we have a collecting permit, so we're going to expose it back up and collect as much of this as we can. And so where else the skeleton leads us will be the mystery for the next few days. Let's dance.
The hunt for the Edmontosaurus is underway, but this isn't the first one found in the Badlands of Saskatchewan. In the 1870s, Ottawa sent a team of surveyors here to map the new border with the United States. And a member of that crew became Canada's first dinosaur hunter.
George Mercer Dawson was part of the Geological Survey of Canada that mapped the 49th parallel from Lake Superior to the Rocky Mountains.
He was the son of the principal of McGill University, William Dawson. A childhood illness had bent his spine, but his spirit and curiosity were unbreakable.
1874, he passed through here, a horse and wagon, collected the very first dinosaur fossil in Canada, ever. He shipped the fossils back to McGill, to his dad, and they were identified as a duck-billed dinosaur. 150 years later, it's kind of a nice full circle feeling and story, like for McGill to come back here.
And now the students have uncovered a rib bone from the same gigantic species.
Edmontosaurus is the biggest duck-billed dinosaur in North America. It was a giant. It had skulls greater than 5 feet long.
Edmontosaurus's huge head extended into a rounded, toothless beak, which is why they're known as duck-billed dinosaurs.
I'm digging out around this vertebrae right here so that we can trench all the way around it.
Andrews found more evidence showing just how big this Edmontosaurus was. Each vertebra was half a meter tall. Edmontosaurus was 10 meters long, the length of a railroad car. And at 5,500 kilos outweighed an elephant. This was one of the biggest vegetarians of its time. An adult Edmontosaurus needed to consume at least 100 kilos of vegetation every day. Because of the replaceable teeth in the back of its skull, it could actually include wood in its high-fiber diet. In fact, these cows of the Cretaceous era could chew through just about anything, which probably gave them a survival advantage if the food source got scarce, until they became the food source for the meat eaters.
The duckbill was probably scared because the only large predator from this whole unit is T-Rex.
This one was discovered nearby. His name's Scotty, and he's the heaviest T-Rex they've ever found. He's as long as the Edmontosaurus, but broader in the middle. Despite its size, Edmontosaurus was surprisingly fast. And in dense forest, it had a good chance of outmaneuvering its bigger, bulkier stalker. T-Rex and Edmontosaurus were among the last of the dinosaurs. Larson and his students hope the bones will help crack the code and explain why these giants fell, while other species like crocodiles and turtles lived on. In Drumheller, Alberta, Francois Thérien's Tyrrell team continues their search for a rare horned dinosaur.
Is that a new one, or is it the one you had before? It's new? Oh, yeah.
The team's hunting an Rhinoceratops. Only 2 skulls have ever been found, and very little is known about the body. A skeleton would give them more than the size of the animal. It would help them understand its role in the world in which it lived and died. "70 million years ago, a vast inland sea wound through North America. It created a warm, humid ecosystem. But 4 million years before the asteroid struck, conditions began to change.
So if we look at the outcrop in front of us there, we can see that it's composed of different layers of different rocks, and each of those layers tells us a different story of changing environments. So if we look at the black layer there, it's all a coal bed, so it represents an ancient swamp environment. Just underneath that black line, you have a thick white horizon that represents an ancient river that flowed through there.
The rocks show that, like us, the last dinosaurs had to contend with environmental change. Their inland sea shrank. The jungles died, replaced by cooler, drier forests. We know that a Rhinoceratops was able to live in this new environment, but did it have to adapt in any way? The only way to know is to find fossils from its body. And just 10 meters from the main dig site, team member Mark Mitchell has unearthed a remarkable discovery.
What you're looking at right now is a shoulder blade or a scapula of a horned dinosaur. And over here is part of the hip or the ilium of a horned dinosaur. These appear to be larger bones. There might be more of a more mature animal, more of an adult animal.
It's a notable find. These are the first bones ever found from the body of an Rhinoceratops. Finally, a picture of this long-lost creature is starting to form. With the hunt for the rare dino underway, the Tyrrell team hopes to make another historic discovery.
First feathered dinosaurs in the Western Hemisphere? How great is that?
And as the McGill crew looks for the truth about the end of dinosaurs, they also unearth a winged surprise. 2 teams investigate the end of the dinosaurs. In Alberta, the Tyrrell team has found Exhibit A in the intricate mystery, but they need more information. And in Saskatchewan, Professor Hans Larsson's McGill crew is uncovering a 5-ton Edmontosaurus, but are keeping their eyes out for other secrets buried in the bone bed.
Everything we do is looking for more pieces of the puzzle. This place is awesome because we have all this kind of rock. We have the mass extinction boundary. We have all the fossils. It's the last 300 to 500,000 years of the existence of dinosaurs.
The team knows that some animals, like turtles and lizards, survived the killer asteroid. Why didn't the dinosaurs? Larson needs to find more fossils to answer this question.
We found a partial Edmontosaurus sitting below a fantastically rich site, which has hundreds and hundreds of fossils that we're going to use to estimate the paleo biodiversity of that whole region just before the mass extinction of dinosaurs.
Today, the students have found one of those fossils, a dinosaur posing as an ostrich. Ornithomimids have a lot in common with birds. Their major limb bones are hollow, and their legs hang directly below their bodies. Even their skulls are similar, and they were the fastest dinos on 2 feet.
Ornithomimids are ostrich-mimic dinosaurs. They're speed demons, but they have no teeth in their jaws, and they were probably feeding on plants and maybe omnivorous.
The McGill team has uncovered a bird-like creature in Saskatchewan's Badlands, but it's not the first ornithomimid found in Canada. In 2008, Francois Terrien made an historic discovery. It changed his life, and it changed everything we know about ornithomimids.
So this is the spot. So all we knew is that we had part of a skeleton of an ostrich mimic dinosaur. When I was chipping wet rocks, that had a lucky break, and on one of the pieces, there were actually the black striations indicating feathers. At first, yeah, we didn't really believe it.
It was the first time feathered dinosaurs had ever been found in North America.
Now we can actually postulate that wings evolved not in flying animals, but in ground-dwelling animals.
The body was covered with a silky hair-like down, and the wings had large, quilled feathers, like a modern flightless bird.
So it gave us an alternate hypothesis for the origin of wings. Why would wings evolve in the first place? It wasn't for flight, it was probably for display and courtship.
Donna McLeod worked on the fossils of the feathered ornithomimids.
It was one of the toughest specimens I've ever prepared, but it turned out phenomenal. First feathered dinosaurs in the Western Hemisphere? Like, how great is that? I actually celebrated by having it tattooed on myself. So that's the feathered ornithomimid. I've nicknamed the male Kirkpatrick because that's where it was found, and the baby I nicknamed Tweety.
In Saskatchewan, Hans Larson and his students continue to dig out the ornithomimid that lived 66.5 million years ago. And as work continues, they uncover one of its smaller feathered cousins.
This is the bone of a bird. It has really, really dense outside, and it has a hole in the center. And this is a really good indication that it's a bird bone. It looked like the birds that we see walking around today.
Scientists now believe that all birds are descended from dinosaurs. While the dinosaurs disappeared 66 million years ago, they left a genetic legacy you can see in the skies today. Both teams need more answers. The McGill crew has just 3 days to figure out which dinosaurs outlived Armageddon and why. And in Alberta, the Tyrrell team have found the body of an rhinoceratops. Now they need to find its friends and enemies.
It was a death area. They came by and took what they could have.
In the Badlands of Saskatchewan, the McGill crew has uncovered evidence suggesting that some animals survived the killer asteroid. But why didn't the dinosaurs? And in Alberta, the Tyrrell teams found bones that confirm the rare horned dinosaur lived in a period of climatic turbulence, but need more fossils to paint a picture of the pre-extinction world.
Here.
70 million years ago, climate change transformed ancient Alberta. Hot, wet jungles dried up and gave way to cooler, sparser forests. Even as the environment changed, the rhinoceratops adapted to it. They endured the new, drier environment.
This animal will actually play a central piece in our understanding of how animals changed over time and how they responded to climatic and environmental changes.
But did other types of dinosaurs survive as well? Their first clue is tiny.
This is a little Troodon tooth. Troodon is like a little velociraptor, about this size, with teeth like this. They definitely would need to be meat eaters, yeah.
Troodons were small predators whose feathers might have acted as insulation, keeping them warm as the world cooled off. But what did Troodon do for dinner?
So obviously it was a death area where there was different parts of animals here, and they came by and took what they could have. Opportunists.
As hunters and scavengers, Troodons may have been able to feed off carcasses of the larger animals who couldn't cut it. And because they weren't very big, they didn't need much to survive. Would that mean only smaller dinosaurs survived the colder climate, while the bigger creatures died off even before the asteroid? As work continues, the team finds evidence that plus-sized predators could hunt here too.
So this is a tooth of a dinosaur, probably Albertosaurus, which is a little bit smaller than a T-Rex, but still pretty big.
This isn't the first sign of the big meat eater. Albertosaurus came out of the ground near Drumheller over a century ago. It was discovered by Joseph Tyrrell in 1884 when he passed through here working as a geologist for the Canadian government. Today, Canada's biggest dinosaur museum bears his name.
So he was rafting down the Red Deer River to look for this coal, and in the process discovered something totally different, discovered the first skull of an Albertosaurus.
At first, no one knew what to make of his fierce-looking fossils.
And it wasn't until decades later, in 1905, that the first paleontologist to describe T-Rex recognized that the Tyrrell specimen was actually closely related to T-Rex, and actually gave it the name Albertosaurus because Alberta had just been designated a new province that same year.
But what was Albertosaurus doing sidling up to an Rhinoceratops 70 million years ago?
The Albertosaurus probably scavenging on the ceratopsian material and left their teeth behind as they broke off.
Albertosaurus often left his loose teeth in his prey. Then, like a shark, new teeth would replace them. The tooth points to an interesting possibility. These large predators needed a lot to eat. So these drier forests had to be home to many types of dinosaurs, not just a few smaller species. If the team finds fossils in these hills from a diverse dinosaur community, it will tell them exactly who is adapting to a changing world and who was already destined for extinction. Alberta's dinosaurs lived 70 million years ago, but the ones found here in Saskatchewan date from 4 million years later, just before the killer asteroid hit. The McGill crew has uncovered a 5-ton Edmontosaurus lying just below the extinction boundary.
So we can say that this particular species of dinosaur was alive, at least up until then. And so every time we find a dinosaur closer to the boundary is that much more information. Every single specimen counts.
In this period, 3 main types of dinosaurs dominated the landscape.
Living up to the mass extinction. The dinosaur community certainly is different than what it was 10 million years before. There's only one really giant duck-billed dinosaur. There's one giant horned dinosaur. There's only one giant carnivorous dinosaur. So in terms of species numbers, some groups of dinosaurs went from many to one lineage. So that's a pretty big change.
So was climate change the culprit? 70 million years ago, the vast inland ocean that flowed through this area began to dry up. Many species of dinosaurs vanished with it. But not everything suffered in this new environment.
The interesting little twist to this story is that while the dinosaurs seem to have been decreasing in diversity, all of the other vertebrate animals, the animals that have backbones and teeth, don't seem to have been decreasing in diversity. In fact, they seem to be increasing. All the lizards, the amphibians, the crocodiles, there just seem to be a more diverse assemblage closer to the boundary.
And it wasn't just animals evolving. plants were diversifying too.
Emily, we have a plant site.
Oh my knee.
I'm betting that was this one.
Here's a leaf blade, and there's a complete stem. This is as exciting as a dinosaur out here, I think, and I love dinosaurs. This is a complete plant leaf from an angiosperm.
Salix is a willow.
It wouldn't be as big as the modern weeping willow, but something like a willow, but just a little bit smaller. And if we get enough of these, a couple hundred, we can tell you what the temperature is, how much it rained, and what the seasonality was. Right here.
The team finds even more leaves. They're proof that just before the dinosaurs died out, even plants were becoming more diverse, adapting and growing into their environment. The forests were becoming home to willows and oaks. Flowering plants were spreading out across the forest floor.
It's tempting to think that the dinosaurs lived in this sort of ecological void. You hardly ever get to see the other amazing creatures that were around at the same time.
We're trying to reconstruct the whole community based on the animals and plants that we're finding. All that is all part of the package.
The dinosaurs had survived 5 million years of climate change, diminished in numbers, but not defeated. But there was another change on the horizon. A shake-up so powerful and devastating, it would alter the face of the Earth for millions of years. With the dig coming to a close, Larson and the McGill crew are on the verge of figuring out what killed the dinosaurs. And in Alberta, the Tyrrell team needs more fossils to complete the picture of the rare Rhinoceratops. In the badlands of Saskatchewan, the McGill crew needs an answer. Was it the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs, or were they already doomed to extinction? And in Drumheller, Alberta, the Tyrrell team has had encouraging signs that a little-known dinosaur is lying in the bone bed. The team came in search of a horned dinosaur called an Rhinoceratops. Just days into the dig, they found part of its jaw. And now, it looks like lightning has struck twice.
With the discovery of a third lower jaw, the second right lower jaw, then it tells us that we have at least yet 2 individuals, unless we have the first horned dinosaur with 2 heads attached, which would be a really cool discovery, but I think it's most parsimonious to say that we have yet 2 individuals in this layer, making it a bone bed.
It's a major discovery, and it tells Terrier a great deal about how this mysterious creature lived.
It's telling us that these animals also probably lived in herds, and this is thanks to this bone bed that we can make that claim now.
As the weather fluctuated and food sources shifted, a Rhinoceratops was able to adjust to the changing landscape. The fossils suggest that even after the climate changed, there was enough food to sustain entire herds of a Rhinoceratops. Over the next 4 million years, the climate bounced around. Sometimes warmer, sometimes colder. And during that time of thermal unrest, the number of dinosaur species dropped, but they never surrendered the throne. But there was one catastrophic change that even they couldn't adapt to. Some scientists believe that when the asteroid hit, it put a hole in the Earth 200 kilometers around and 20 kilometers deep. Everything within the blast radius was vaporized. The impact caused a tsunami and fired a cloud of debris into the sky.
The heat probably incinerated everything within several hundreds of kilometers. So burned down everything, causing massive forest fires. Make it sort of like a nuclear winter where everything would just die because no sunlight.
Temperatures plummeted. Warm weather vegetation withered and died, leaving plant-eating dinosaurs without food.
So without the sun, plants died. Without plants, herbivores died. And without herbivores, carnivores died. And eventually the scavengers died too, because you can only eat rotten meat for so long.
So one of the main ideas surrounding the actual extinction itself, there seems to be what's called a size bias towards the survivors.
The food chain was inverted. Large dinosaurs with big appetites were doomed. But it was a good time to be small.
And so whatever turtles, crocodiles, mammals, and some birds were doing, they were doing it right.
Not needing as much food, they managed to hang on, and in time, to thrive. With the Saskatchewan dig coming to a close, Professor Larson and the team have one last job to do. Hump the remains of the world's last dinosaurs back to camp.
As we pull it, all three of us have to get all our 6 hands under it. Okay, all the way. All the way. Beauty.
These protective plaster jackets contain the bones of Edmontosaurus. And a backbone from a small ornithomimid.
Perfect.
Now they'll have to hand carry these treasures 6 kilometers overland back to camp. And with the largest ones tipping the scales at over 100 kilos, they're in for a long haul.
We're all set. If you start sliding, just sit down.
There are no roads close to here, so Larson's team is going old school. 100 years ago, fossils were carried out of the Badlands by hand, even by sled.
Hold on.
Larson is a bit more careful with his finds.
So put your hands on the opposite side. Yep. So, but now it's just smooth sailing.
And with their fossils safely stowed at camp, Larson prepares a special celebratory meal, sprinkled with essence of extinction.
Dinner for tonight will be a rice paella, which I'm making with fresh cilantro that we found in a field nearby. And one thing we're going to add to it is the KT boundary. So this is the iridium fallout ash layer that killed out 75% of life on the planet 66 million years ago. And we use it as seasoning for some of our dishes. I mean, where else can you eat paella with the KT boundary in it? So here you go, guys. Here's the KT mass extinction in paella. Chow's on.
Thank you very much.
Most of life is in there. It might be crunchy.
Yeah, the bacon really complements the flavor of roasted dinosaur.
It's case closed on the end of the dinosaurs. The McGill crew will move from dinosaur extinction to dinosaur creation.
One goal is making a bigger tail. Another goal is making free fingers with claws.
And in Alberta, the Tyrrell team has reached its last day of digging. But the surprises keep on coming.
Now that we clearly have evidence of a skull.
After their time in the Badlands, Larson's McGill crew has added new data to the extinction theory and new insights into the 66-million-year-old question, what killed the dinosaurs? But their work is far from over. And in Drumheller, Alberta, Francois Terrien and his Tyrrell team have reached the end of an incredible dig. They've unearthed a cache of rare fossils and uncovered some answers to a prehistoric question.
At first, yeah, when we didn't find any evidence of a skull, we were kind of debating whether it would be worth pursuing the excavation. But now that we clearly have evidence of a skull, I think it's definitely going to be worth pursuing. It's definitely not something that's going to be completed this summer.
Their bone bed will be covered with tarps to protect it from the rain and snow.
Do we have a little bit of tape, orange tape? Up there, there's going to be a warning. Bone under there.
Here and in Saskatchewan, the dino hunters have been grappling with the same issues. Were the dinosaurs doomed to extinction before the asteroid sealed their fate? Over millennia, the number of dinosaurs was reduced by environmental forces. But the strong survived and might have eventually returned to the height of their great power. Until 135 million years of domination was finally obliterated when an asteroid collided with the blue planet. The giants were gone, but the small creatures lived on, including the dinosaurs we now call birds. When the smoke and ash cleared, the Earth began to heal itself and make a new home for the survivors. In time, they too adapted, rebuilding the animal kingdom and evolving into new giants. And one species of upright mammal came to dominate a world where brains beat brawn.
Yeah.
The dinosaurs may be long gone, but back in Montreal, Hans Larsen thinks there may be a way to bring them back to life.
Just about to start an injection.
One of our directed projects in this lab has been termed the Chickenosaurus project.
Using chicken genes, they're trying to recreate some of the features of their dinosaur ancestors.
I mean, it's not Jurassic Park. Birds are dinosaurs, so we're actually playing with dinosaur DNA. And all we're doing is seeing if we can tinker with the embryology to reveal some of these ancient anatomies. One goal is making a bigger tail. Another goal is making free fingers with claws.
Someday, with a little nudge from the genetic engineers, millions of years of evolution will be unraveled, and the dinosaurs may live again.
We'll keep them very small. There's no sense getting them big.
That dream is years into the sci-fi future. For now, dinosaurs live on in their fossilized remains. And they are everywhere. The first ones were found 140 years ago in the West. But now we know they can be found all across Canada. From coast to coast, Canada is sitting on an incredible natural resource. A world that lived millions of years ago, lying just beneath the surface, waiting to be discovered. Who knows what prehistoric marvels we'll uncover, or what stories the bones will tell on Dino Hunt.